Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm Rob Cesternino, back again for some Outwit, Outplay, OutLIST, where we go through all of the most arbitrary and reductive of Survivor things. And with me, as always, to break down another great list, give it up for Mike Bloom.
Rob, I am absolutely ready to feast today on a veritable buffet of moments. Put away those zaddy calendars, people. Today, we're talking about a different snack.
Okay. All right. Yes. Feast your ears on what we're about to talk about here today because the listeners are eating today. We've got a great guest here with us. Sometimes, Mike, you and I come up with the ideas for the list, and then we say, who would be a great guest? Today, we have the opposite. Our guest said, hey, this is the list that we should talk about to help us break down all of Survivor's most iconic food moments. Please welcome in the great Maggie Morgan is here. Maggie, how are you?
Hi guys, I'm awesome. I mean, does this just show how big of a nerd I am that I'm like on my notes app, like writing out all of the food moments in Survivor history that make me cackle with laughter and furiously sending them to Mike Bloom, being like, we have to do this. Like, I feel like I should just tattoo nerd on my forehead.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay,
Maggie,
that's the next brand steal. What should Maggie get tattooed on her forehead?
that's
Love
how we
it.
got Mike a tattoo. Yeah.
I don't
So,
have a tattoo though. I feel like did you have a tattoo before you got your tattoo,
no.
Mike?
Nope, this is my first one.
Oh gosh. Okay. That's a lot of pressure. I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
I can agree to that one. But yeah, maybe just in spirit, I have nerd tattooed on my forehead here.
Maggie, was there something in particular that the inspiration struck you? Were you eating something? Were you watching something? How did you come up with this idea?
I think I just started to think about the moments in Survivor that have made me double over with laughter. And I started to realize the connective tissue is that most of them revolve around food because, like, food brings petty drama on Survivor.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
even this season
Mm-hmm.
on Big Brother, food is bringing petty drama. So, like, it's very fun for me to watch these people squirm or like get upset or screw somebody over food, and you just get like absurd reactions oftentimes to things, which a lot of this list is just not even about like the food, it's about the absurd reactions surrounding it. And I was like, if I'm going to talk to Rob and Mike, I want to just laugh for 3 hours straight. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm here to do today. I'm
Okay.
pumped.
Yeah, this is a fun one. Food has a special place on Survivor, of course, that they create a food scarcity on Survivor. So anytime that food comes up in a topic of conversation, it's always fraught with additional tension and excitement. And so all of the emotions are put around the food on Survivor. So I think we should have some really fun moments to talk about. Mike, how did you ultimately round out the list?
So I'll admit, the large majority of it came from our chef de cuisine today, Maggie Morgan. Came to us with a pretty curated menu, I should say, of a lot of things that we ended up filling in. As always, I think I'm going to put a couple of disclaimers in here as to what we're sort of using as criteria for this particular podcast. So when it comes to food moments, we're talking about usually moments of eating food, perhaps moments of using food for other things besides eating it. We tended to avoid like hunting and killing food because that could be a different podcast in and of itself. There's been so many moments around like getting animals, foraging, all those types of things. We have also included stuff from challenges because, especially early on, we had that challenge that I coin, eating local delicacies. I would say that produces some iconic moments in and of themselves. We're including rewards in there. We try to stay away from the Survivor auction because while there is food obviously front and center with that, that could feel like an entirely different list in and of itself. The auction is super iconic, something that unfortunately we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
But we couldn't help ourselves. There's a skosh of auction stuff
Hmm.
on
Okay.
there.
Mike, can I pitch the next Survivor Outwit Outplay? Listen, it's a little bit going to be different format, and it's going to
Okay.
be okay. And maybe it's a bigger panel. Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fictional auction where we are going to be bidding on our top auction moments from Survivor. So there's an auctioneer.
Gosh,
and then
that
they're
sounds
like,
so
all
fun.
right, we've got Cochran is going to eating the peanut butter off, and then whoever has the best list. All right, I'm going to give $100. All right, you hear 120. What
Rob,
do you think?
you essentially are turning Triple O into an NFT. You realize that, right? Like you're bidding on moments to own.
Yeah, but so you don't own them. But then at the end, who had the best team of moments? Maybe somebody goes all in on one thing.
That could be interesting. Yeah, I think that could be a very fun way to look. We're constantly reimagining and revisiting how we play this game of Outwit, Outplay, OutLIST. We're in
Yeah.
a new era right now.
Yeah. So, well, let's see. Let the listeners tell us: is the auction moments auction inspired or tired? Yes.
I am listener,
retired.
and
Yes.
I am excited. I think it
Excited.
is inspired.
Okay, there we go.
Yes.
One vote for excited.
All right, good. Because Maggie, you don't love like the most complicated of ideas on these things, right? You want to keep it fun and simple on the podcast, right?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes like getting too cute in any form of like these reality TV, anything, I think sometimes can get a little much. But no, that sounds really fun, especially if you have fun personalities like doing the auction.
Yeah.
Like I know Chappelle would like fight the rest of the panel to get what he wanted. So
we heard about who Chappelle would fight this past week on the slap. So
Yeah. Okay, good. Because I feel like you would tell us, Maggie, if we lost the plot.
I would.
Yes.
I would. Yeah,
Okay.
no, that sounds fun. I want to be one of the people.
Great.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. She's
All right.
locking down her spot right now.
All right, Maggie is in the auction. Okay. This is Outwit, Outplay, OutLIST. Okay. We are going to go through a bunch of food moments from Survivor history. We're going to sort them into 4 tiers to help us rank them. By the end of this episode, we will have a list of the most iconic food moments. They will go into one of 4 tiers, starting at the bottom, which is forget you, go home, goodbye. We have Ain't No Hershey Bar, My Life is Fine, and then Worth Playing For, that is the best. And we will also walk away with the best food moment of all time, the most iconic food moment of all time. Anything else we need to set up before we get going?
I mean, I don't think this isn't a, podcast where we have to typify what food means. At least I hope not. I hope everyone has... I mean, I don't know, Rob, you're the only Survivor contestant on the panel. I'm sure the actual breadth of the game defines food in a different way, depending on if you're actually out there.
Yeah, what is food? I think that we're looking at like meals, but I think that this is things that are capable of being eaten. You know,
Food and drink.
Yeah. Food and drinks. Yeah, I think it kind of, this is like one where I know last time there was a lot of debate about when we talked about shirts, what's a shirt, what's a top, what's different. So I think food is pretty much, I think we got this. Yeah, I don't see a lot of controversy.
Can I just say something? Everybody, it's not that deep. I'm here to laugh. Let's all be here to laugh. Okay. That's my disclaimer before we begin.
Okay. All right. Where are we starting? What's our first course?
Well, yeah, let's start. I know that Maggie said let's not go deep, but let's take a deep dive because we are starting all the way back with one of my personal favorite seasons, Survivor Pearl Islands. And as always, we do have a slideshow to follow along with this. One of Sandra Diaz-Twine's most iconic moments, in my opinion, that possibly landed her on the villain's tribe where she gets her second win. But in Pearl Islands, Sandra loses one of her closest allies, Rupert. He brought in a fresh haul the previous day, the Gordon's fisherman that was Rupert Boneham in Survivor Pearl Islands. And vindictively, she tosses the fish out following tribal council. And to Maggie's point earlier, what ensues is a big, dramatic brouhaha that unfortunately foists the target upon her closest ally, Krista Hasty.
And what was Krista's reaction to having the blame put on her, Mike?
I can't believe this. I got the scarlet letter. F for fish. I didn't do it. I was braiding my hair. I put my 5th braid in.
You know, on my Twitter timeline this week, for some reason, the freeze frame of you dressed as the pirate from the top 40 countdown of Pearl Islands came up.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
So what happened was my lovely wife Angela Bloom was on the Love Island recap with Kirsten and Scally, and there is a guy on there, allegedly she told me about this, who like had one earring in. And she said and she's like, oh, I love that look. I love this sort of like pirate look. And the out of context account said, yeah, we know. We've seen it before. We've seen the bedroom habits. We get it.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, that
All
is
right.
so funny. Is that like when did the discovery that you do the perfect Krista voice? Like when did it happen?
I'd say about minute 27 of that podcast. Listen,
Yeah, because
very-
that was right before you came on Survivor Historians, right? So
yeah, so
yes.
I haven't done it yet. Though it is, I have to thank the people that got me to that point: Jay Fisher, Josh Wigler, truly being up there with the two of them for building out Krista Hasty impressions, which is like the bridge. Apparently, you're not a Survivor podcaster unless you've attempted a Krista Hasty impression. Apparently,
Yes.
Oh,
All
that
right.
is so funny.
Maggie, how do you feel about this moment?
I love it. It's
Yeah.
so it's like one of the first things you think of when you think of this list. You're like, okay, well, if we're talking about iconic food moments, we have to talk about Sandra throwing out the fish. And what makes it so great is it like really, really helped thrust Krista right in front of Sandra in terms of targets. It helped paint Krista as this very vindictive person that she wasn't. And it was actually Sandra. It honestly, like it started off as Sandra just being messy and then ended up being
Literally.
fabulous strategy. Exactly. Fabulous strategy for her. And, she didn't even mean to throw out the fish. She tripped with it. And then
Mhm.
she just recovered flawlessly. Like, this is the Sandra Diaz Twine, like, liar villain that all of us are obsessed with. So I feel like
Yeah.
it like is like the essence of Sandra Diaz Twine is this moment.
Well, no, where was she going with the fish? Was she going to go and like hide them because she didn't want Burton and Fairplay to have them, or she was going
Yeah.
to actually throw them further away?
No, I think she wanted to place it like in the woods because I still think there was that attitude of like Rupert caught these
Mhm.
fish. They voted out Rupert. They don't deserve the fish. And then
Mhm.
she
Mhm.
tripped accidentally because it's dark out there, ends up spilling the fish and is like, oh, okay. Like, actually, this just got even better because now, even if they wanted the fish, now it's covered in like sand and probably a lot of pee.
Mhm. A lot of pee.
I don't know where people were peeing out there in the woods. Like, she could have tripped on the
Doesn't
pee
it pee in the
spot.
water? Don't they go
I
into the
don't-
water and pee?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm remembering back to Survivor Thailand with the piss cave.
Yeah,
God.
I'm pretty sure that the fish would not be covered with a lot of pee if I had to guess. I don't think that anybody fell on the pee spot.
How do you think I got the fish out? You catch more fish with pee than with
Mike,
pee.
whoa.
Stop.
Mike, there's no such thing as pee.
Oh
Is
my
that your
God.
Krista?
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Not
There you go.
to
Now
act
you're
as
Maggie, you're
talented.
officially a Survivor podcaster. Mazel tov. You attempted your Krista
You
Hasty
did it.
impression.
You did it.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, this is a big moment. Again, it was not one that I would have thought of immediately because it's not about people eating. But it is food, and
Yeah.
it is food that ends up being used in a way to be a big plot point in the show. So
Mhm.
interesting. Should we see where it ranks on the list?
Yeah,
Okay.
the first couple are always going to be interesting, right? Because we're setting the bar, but I would say
We're
also
level setting.
But I would also say the first couple are by far the most likely at the end of the list to get bumped up or down. It's like we are setting the bar, but we're also adjusting the bar, right? It's like, oh, you didn't
Mhm.
vault over that. Okay, we're going to make it a little bit lower. So this is all up for debate and up for changing once we actually get to the end of things.
Okay, so here is our tier list that we are going to see, and right here we have our fish. Right now, I have it in the "Forget You, Go Home, Goodbye." It will most certainly rise up from there. Ain't no Hershey bar.
I think to be
I would say at least My Life is Fine, in my opinion.
My life is fine.
Mhm. I think depending on what the worth playing for looks like, I could see it being bumped up to the lower end of worth playing for. But I think it should be firmly in My Life is Fine because not only is it something that's like funny and referenced, it really did affect a ton of the gameplay on the season and was like one of Sandra's shining moments in Pearl Island. So I definitely think it should be at least at, my life is fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's an interesting point, Rob. One of the things we have yet to do is do like a list dedicated to one specific person. I do wonder if that's in the cards for at some point during one of these off seasons, if we do like a tiering of top Sandra Diaz Twine moments. Because I was thinking like, where does this rank on her list of most iconic moments? And it is an early one, so I think that certainly helps. But yeah, it's really interesting to think about of how does this chart and inform the Sandra character we know and love.
Yeah. Wow.
That's fun.
That would be interesting. The all-time list of a certain person's moments. I feel like there's probably maybe only like 3 or 4 people you could even do that for.
Oh, definitely. Maybe we'll try to get into Nina's DMs and see if she can come on as a guest for that one. I'm sure she has a lot of opinions about it.
No, I'm telling you, like, don't ask a kid to talk about like their relative, because they're gonna like diminish whatever they're doing. Like ask my kids about like what does your dad do? Like nothing. Kids are,
I don't know,
they
that'd be
don't
entertaining
appreciate.
in and of itself for Nina to be like, yeah, my mom threw out fish. Big whoop. People do that every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying like that maybe like too close to the source material isn't always the best place to go. Okay. All right. Are you ready for the next moment? What do we have next, Mike?
So you're talking about kids. Let's talk about a guy who played with his dad. And this is the first reward moment from San Juan del Sur. Wes Nail, enigmatic in and of himself, has a reward where several people, including his father, end up going to a taco bar. And Wes overindulges, for lack of a better term, and goes from having a great time to a really, really bad time very quickly.
Okay.
I mean, who among us has not gotten the meat sweats, So
Yes.
I cannot tell you how much I relate to Wes in this. Like, there's been moments where I've been at a restaurant and I've been like, oh no, I've gone too far, and I can only imagine how exacerbated that is when you're literally starving and then suddenly you've eaten about 8 pounds of pork or whatever in the tacos.
That's the thing for me, and like many men in their 20s, I went through a Brazilian barbecue phase, and I do think that there is this idea, right, of like wanting to push yourself to your limit, and then once you get there being like, okay, I'll never do that again. Yet somehow it's like giving birth, where the next time you see a fogo de chao, you're like, yeah, I could go for that. I got burned once, but like now I know how to avoid the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Maggie, if you weren't watching this in the real time, the thing that is like branded in my memory about this was that they used to have like the hashtags on the bottom of the screen for this. And this was one of the most iconic Survivor hashtags for me, that they hashtag this of hashtag taco overload.
What among us?
What happened to that? Like, was it a failure? Have they just like moved on from it? I miss those hashtags personally.
Yeah, they don't really do it. If anything, that maybe it's just like Survivor. I guess that people they don't try to hashtag moments anymore. Just use the show. I guess they felt like because I guess then you could see like, oh, there's only like 3 people used to hashtag taco overload. It's embarrassing.
Were you one of them, Rob?
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Now I'm about to let's search hashtag taco overload. Let's see if it's been repurposed for other things.
Okay, let us know, Mike, on the taco overload. But yeah, this is a great moment. And then Wes is fading. Keith is like the dad who is like, hey, maybe you should slow down there, Wesley. Like he's trying to tell us, like, he's warning his son. But as we're talking about with like parents and children, that they don't always heed the warning.
Yeah, Dad, you don't know anything. I know how much I can eat.
Yeah,
And
don't
then
you remember
5
that
minutes
chicken?
later, he's like,
Don't you remember that chicken nugget contest, Dad? Like, I'm really good at overeating, but apparently the tacos were too much. Yeah, this is definitely those things where your eyes are bigger than your stomach, especially like a month into Survivor, right? Where your body has tried to adjust to malnutrition. That you're like, oh, all you can eat taco bar, incredible. And your body's like, no, absolutely
Yeah.
not.
And
Mhm.
I imagine that he started eating and his body was like, more, more. Oh my gosh, there's food.
Yeah.
So like, before he had a chance to catch his breath, he had like 10 steak tacos.
Well, don't
Which,
forget that Wesley is also the same man that we found out has won a chicken McNugget eating competition. Watch out, Puya, because Wesley is the champion.
amen.
Mhm.
I mean, I love that you keep calling him Wesley because now it makes me think in my mind of like a world where Keith Nail is Captain Jean-Luc Picard and like, give me that Star Trek series. That's what I want to see. Keith Nail captaining a starship.
Going on a starship is fun. Going to the holodeck is fun. Going to Ryza, that's fun. Playing
Exactly.
Survivor, not fun.
Bourbon, neat, hot.
Mhm. Also, that in this scene, that I remember also Keith Nail's like, oh, Wesley, he's a good boy. He hasn't been to jail.
No,
Like,
and that's
yeah.
the thing. Like Keith is like, oh, Wes, like maybe slow down. And then Wes is like, psh.
Nah.
And Keith's like, I have done all I could possibly do.
Yes.
I said one single comment to him, and there is nothing else I could possibly do right now in this moment to help my child.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great, I think to your point, a nice introspection into like their relationship where Wes is like, Dad, I'm gonna run headfirst to a pricker bush. He's like, probably shouldn't do that.
Wesley, I wouldn't do that.
And he's like, all right, well, I did all I could. Out of my hands now. Go ahead, son.
Mike, did your search of the hashtag taco overload yield any results?
So a lot of it actually was from Survivor. Actually, back from April 18th, 2018, which I guess was the taco reward from, I think, Survivor Ghost Island.
Yes.
So I think the Survivor fans kept taco
Brought it
overload
back.
alive.
Brought it back. Yeah.
The other thing I saw was one person tweet, LOL, when you order 16 tacos, but they heard 60 tacos. And it is a photo of 60 tacos.
Oh my
including
God.
Sides.
Yeah, I found my own tweet from November 12th, 2014. Welcome hashtag taco overload to the Survivor hashtag Hall of Fame. So even in the real time, coming up almost 10 years, it's from the taco overload 10-year anniversary. And the Survivor Twitter account that night also said, did Wes overdo it? Hashtag taco overload, hashtag Survivor.
And there wasn't even like a poll functionality in Twitter, right? So like it was just an open-ended question where people could respond one way or the other.
Yeah. What do you think people said? Did Wes overdo it?
I mean, considering that he looks like on death's door, like he's like his soul is about to leave his body, I would say so. I mean, also the thing that we keep
sweaty.
Yeah, the thing that we keep skirting around is, of course, this produces the infamous Keith Nail life aphorism, right? Like, as long as you're gonna keep burping, you're doing okay.
Okay. So, all right. Fun moment.
True. For the record, I don't think that that's true.
If you are in a chocolate factory and you've drank the fizzy lifting drinks, also, Keith Nail and Grandpa Joe have kind of a similar look too.
Oh yeah. Look at me. I'm dancing. I'm driving a Toto.
Burp, Wesley, burp.
Okay. I never thought that I would be.
All right. You're a crook. Okay. Then we have our let's bring in our taco overload here for Wes Nail, and let's see where we're gonna place this. Okay, so I think that this is not forget you go home goodbye, right?
Definitely not.
Okay. Ain't no Hershey bar.
I feel like that's maybe more appropriate for this moment.
Yeah, I think that, like, obviously while the food is the instigator, I almost feel like the food moment is, as we talked about before, more about like the responses to the overeating and less so about the actual overeating. Like, you could replace the tacos with any veritable food. And even though, again, like taco overload, actually, maybe does taco overload bring it up a skosh? I don't know if I'd bring it up out of Ain't No Hershey bar, but that may need to be in consideration when we're sorting within the tier proper.
I could see it on the back of my life is fine, but I think it's fine there right now.
Yeah,
Okay. Don't overdo
I'm
it.
in.
All right. Let's go to our third food moment. Michael, what do you have?
All right, so we talked about 16 or 60 tacos, and that comes with a buttload of rice. You know where they didn't have a buttload of rice? Survivor
Where?
David versus Goliath. And so one brave individual does what no others can do, steps up in the moment to say, Jeff Probst, I'm here to bargain, much like Doctor Strange at the end of his titular film. We are talking about the great Angelina Keeley deciding to negotiate with Jeff Probst for more rights for the tribe.
Okay.
Oh my God,
Yes.
she is so me. I love her so much. I relate to Angelina on such a visceral level. Her with her braids, with her finger up, being like, excuse me. That is so me after starving for 20 days on an island. She's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. I love her.
A-
Her and herself. Icon.
Angelina, how many braids are there? You could add like 3 more.
Yeah, this is an important moment for the show, I feel like, because I think it ultimately leads to the players not having rice anymore.
Oh, that's interesting. You think this is sort of the nexus of the new era of no rice, like you bargain your way. I definitely think it happened. It leads to the eat or compete stuff that we got in 41 or 42 from a collective perspective, right? When Jeff's like,
Right. Oh,
okay,
yeah.
if 3 or 4 people sit out, and then the definite back and forth, I think is Angelina's forte.
But I think Angelina was, smart enough to make the realization of like, they're not gonna let us die. So like they're gonna give us more rice. Like we should just ask for it.
So good. And she was like, and I will be the hero to
Mm-hmm.
do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Master
definitely helps.
negotiator.
Well, that also definitely helps is that in subsequent episodes, Angelina will then consistently bring up that she was the one who ended up getting them the rice.
Don't forget. You remember,
How could
right?
we?
Yeah.
How could we? You
Don't vote
icon.
out. Don't vote off your Gandhi, people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't learn from history.
Yes, this was a selfless act, remember? Yeah, and
Mhm.
then when her mom came for the family visit
Yeah.
also, it came up. And so, yeah, this is pretty good. Again, this is a more about the food than it is like
Mhm.
a particular like food moment, but certainly a memorable survivor moment here for the rice negotiation.
Now, I guess the question is, and I forget when you talked with Angelina, Rob, like if she brought this up, because we just spoke about San Juan del Sur, right?
Yeah.
Where like one of the running themes was people constantly trying to negotiate with Jeff, leading to actually the name of one of those tiers in My Life is Fine. Do you think Angelina was inspired by that, or was this more so like her pedigree, right? Her time in business school saying, oh, I'm going to be savvy or savvy right here, right
Yeah.
now, and try to
You
try
know,
to talk with him.
That's interesting because I did speak with her the day after that it came up in Survivor 42. But I don't think that she referenced that like Drew Christie was an inspiration for her.
How dare
I
she?
well, I think that, but in that same season also, though, that there was a trade where Jeff took the tarp from the camp to give them
Mhm.
more rice. So like I think that there has been precedent for Survivor Australia certainly. So I think there's been precedent for other survivors trying to get more rice from production.
What do you
Yeah.
think is the right thing to open up here? I'm trying to remember, like, was it what did he ask for? Was it like, did she offer up a bunch of like items from the camp at the time? Because I know that like you're going back to Australia, like Jeff sometimes sets the terms, and I think he does in 41 and 42, whereas Angelina is the one to do so, which definitely plays into the power dynamics of negotiation as well.
I believe that she opened with some like items from the camp of like certain things that they had won from rewards. But I think that ultimately Jeff just makes her sit out of the challenge, right?
Yeah, Jeff was like, "Okay, well, I don't care about any of that. People aren't competing then." Like Jeff, I don't think Jeff liked that he was being haggled with, and he was immediately like, I don't care about that. This is what I want." You know?
Hmm. But it was
And
only
yeah,
Angelina that had to sit out of the challenge, right?
I don't know. I can't really remember.
Yeah, because I know she definitely sat out of the challenge because it was the infamous, right? Like, I sat out of the challenge for rice. Because that's the thing is, it was less about even like her being the hero and more like her being the messiah in a manner of speaking, right? Of like, I took this sacrifice. I was the one that took it on the chin in order for you all to eat. You're welcome.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think that it was even that bad, like what she had to give up. So I think she did a great job at this negotiation. How
Yeah,
about that?
it's very much that thing, right? When we talk about like the eating or compete, or even like the advent of the do or die. Of I think players nowadays are very observational. Of like they'll look at the challenge and be like, okay, if there is like not a sizable chance that I'm winning this, let me sit out for whatever might be presented. And yeah, for Angelina, not to say that her challenge skills were not necessarily up to snuff, but I'm sure there's a non-zero chance she looks at the makeup of the challenge and is like, yeah, listen, I don't need to embarrass myself on national TV, and I get rice for the tribe. Sure, why not? Then I'll embarrass myself on national TV in a different way when I consistently bring it up over the course of the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay. So then why don't we see where this should all end up on our list, okay? Going back and looking at, I was trying to see my notes from this night of Survivor, which apparently was November 28th, 2018. But okay, we don't have that kind of time. All right. Let's go back and take a look at where this should end up on our list. Maggie, do you have a an opening bid here?
Hey, the auction
Well,
moment isn't happening yet.
Mm-hmm.
well, honestly, I think that going into our discussion of it, I thought maybe it would go a little higher. But then, like, the joy and excitement around the moment perhaps is not as high as I thought it would be. So maybe I think like lower in Ain't No Hershey Bar. That's sort of my opening bid.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What do you think, Mike?
Behind Taco Overload.
I do think so.
I
Hmm.
might put it above Taco Overload because of the legacy of it all. But it's tough though, because also if your criteria is like about the food itself, again, rice is involved from a metaphoric perspective as the item that is on the table, but it doesn't necessarily get involved as heavily as the tacos themselves. So I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place right now. I'm gonna need Angelina to come on and negotiate for me a couple spots up here on the countdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like this is the most iconic moments that I feel like that the Taco Overload is funny, but is it iconic?
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Feel like the hashtag was iconic. Was the moment
Mhm.
iconic? I
You're
I
right.
don't know. So I feel like it should at least be above Taco Overload, but should it be in the next tier?
I'm fine keeping it here right now, but I could be persuaded with other
Yeah.
arguments as well by an Angelina type for once we get to my life is fine. The middle tiers are always tough, right? Because those end up being much like Wes is belly distended by the end of it. And so that's when we usually do the most shifting. So I could see this get bumped up because I also think it's very like synonymous with Angelina's character, just like the fish is very synonymous with Sandra's character. So that
Yeah.
might bump it up, but I'm fine keeping it right here, right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Yeah. I see from my notes also that, yeah, all Jeff wanted was, he said, if somebody here is willing to sacrifice their shot at immunity, and Angelina was that person. So
Oh, that
that's all it
that
took.
is yeah, I was gonna say like Jeff is a little bit of a softie in that way. Again, previously he was taking entire people's camps and ransacking
Yeah.
them.
Right.
Mhm.
And Angelina, her name was being thrown around as a decoy, so it was a little bit of a risky move on her part, she told us. So that's what ultimately it took for, again, this was a good deal for Angelina and for the survivors.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, what is up next, Mike?
Well, we talk about things that are synonymous with characters. Let's talk about the challenge that was so nice. They did it twice. We are going back to one of the first iconic moments in Survivor history. Survivor Borneo, the first delicacies challenge involving eating the butod, the grub that Gervase Peterson had a tough time choking down in not just one, but both of the seasons he's appeared on.
Okay, so are we ranking the sort of the ultimately story that is told over what 17 years of from Gervase?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think
I
that
mean,
I think it has to be incorporated in there, right? The fact that I think what's going to certainly help this moment is the fact that they do bring it back. I'm assuming
Yeah.
expressly because Gervase was on this season.
Mm-hmm.
mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
I think perhaps like if Gervase had not ever come back, that we would never have seen this again. But this moment, again, like you're saying, the rice is tied to Angelina, the fish is tied to Sandra. Like this is like Gervase on Survivor. Well, one of Gervase's big moments
Yeah.
on Survivor. There's another one even on this list that we'll get into.
Mm.
Two more on this
Yeah.
list that we'll get into. But I think that, yeah, if we're talking iconic food moments, like this is, like you said, a 17-year story
Yeah, I think it's
of
actually only 14 years, but we get the idea.
14-year story, you
Yeah,
know?
those Butod have like grown up and gone to high school by the time Blood versus Water
Mhm.
comes
Mhm.
around.
They're
Mhm.
Butod. I always thought it was Butak.
I think it depends either or. From what I've seen, like from the actual Borneo, society, it's Butod, but I think Survivor called it Butak in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would say though that for me, I feel like that this is like with all due respect to Gervase, Never Nervous Peterson, I would say that this moment I think has less to do with Gervase for me than the actual like first time it was done, because I think that that was something that really put the show on the map. Where I feel like where the Gervase versus Stacy battle was episode 2 of Survivor
Hmm.
Borneo, correct? And when that happened, like I feel like that was such a huge moment. I feel like, Survivor kind of came and went, but I don't think that there was anything from the first episode that really had people like talking about the show. But when they ate the beetle larvae in the second episode of the first season of Survivor, I feel like that was like everywhere. That was like just like national news of like, did you see what they're doing on this show? So I feel like that Survivor doesn't become, the phenomenon it did so as quickly as it did without that challenge so early on.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. See, I was 6 years old when that happened, so I don't have
Hmm.
that context, but the that is like that would make sense too as to why they brought it back in Blood versus Water if it was such an iconic moment of the show early on.
Hmm.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and it goes especially, but I do think it's also helped by Jervis's reaction, right? We're like,
Mhm.
Sure.
call him, call him Big Tom Celebration because dude is a ham, and he is just like jumping up and down, like holding his hat over his head, like he is having the toughest time with it. And yeah, to your point, it ends up coming down to this tiebreaker of send in the weakest eater from the other tribe. Pagong picks Stacy Stillman. Stacy does not put up any sort of suit or anything like that, but she ends up Tagi ends up picking Gervase, and Tagi ends up prevailing here,
Yeah.
and it is something that does follow
I
Gervase
forgot
into
he's
Blood versus.
like hitting his face and like
Yeah, exactly. But then it ends up being, to your point though, Rob, while it is more so well known for like the challenge, it does get brought back in Blood versus Water, where Jeff says like, "All right, Gervase, this is your second chance. Can you do this?" And
hmm.
Gervase is like, "No, second chances is 4 seasons from now. I'm not going to do it this time." And he
That's
again
right.
falls on the Butod.
Oh, yeah, he lose to Monica on this one?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he couldn't down it once again. I'm pretty sure history repeats itself.
Yes, I do remember Monica did win this challenge, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Look, I would not do great at this either. So, I can totally relate to what Jervis is going through.
I feel like it's the type of thing like these type of food challenges on Survivor are the type of thing where like if you think about it too long, like you're gonna have a problem. You just have to like, you know, just
Hmm.
go for it. Just go for it.
Yeah.
And
Could you do it, Maggie?
I do think I could. I think that it's one of those things like it's like the same as like, jumping from a really high thing. It's like just really quickly, I just have to make the
What?
decision and then I could do it.
Mike nodded his head so affirmatively. Was that you were confident in Maggie, or you yourself, Mike, would have no problem downing the Butod?
Porque no los dos. I would at least try it. My life philosophy is to try everything at least once. I don't think I've told this story on the podcast before, but when I had the great pleasure of going out to set for Survivor 39 to do preseason press, I did end up just eating random fruit I found on the ground in the jungles of Fiji, which in retrospect, is probably not the best idea. Probably would have given
Yeah.
me severe
Mhm.
gastrointestinal distress, but I'm like, hey, when in Rome, forage and find.
Yeah, because I think that the survivors, they tell them not to even do that. So I think that
Yep,
was
yep. No, I heard that after the
Yeah.
fact. The worst thing was I picked up the fruit and I was like sitting with one of the handlers and I'm like, do you want to eat this together? And he's like, sure. And then after we ate it, we're like, oh, we shouldn't have done that. Oh no. Oh,
Yeah,
whoopsie
like
doodles.
get a parasite or something.
Mm-hmm.
Come home
Yeah.
with a friend.
Okay. All right, so this is interesting. Let's see where we should put this. I mean, this is an iconic moment, boy.
Mhm.
So, certainly the Borneo version more so than the blood
Yeah.
versus water iteration of this, which I think is a little bit more of an afterthought. But does it help it? Let's see. Okay, let's go to the big board. All right, Maggie. This should be at least to my life is fine, right?
Definitely.
Okay,
Definitely.
let's bring it up here.
I'm gonna have to lean on you guys a little bit more for this because like if you're saying it was this huge iconic thing in the moment, like I was not of present mind for that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Well,
was
you
in
were listening to
kindergarten.
like Howard Stern at the time in
Yeah,
kindergarten, Maddie.
I was, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
listen, this is worth playing for, in my opinion. You have to note the fact that it was so iconic the first time that they brought it back as one of the food items in the Delicacies Challenge in Blood versus Water. I think that really speaks for itself.
If you asked a person, like, okay, name something they do on Survivor, I think that they would probably very quickly, like, oh, they eat gross stuff. Like, I think that it would be something that, like, it would be very much like in the collective, like, consciousness, like, about the show, even though we know they actually don't do that very often. And that was the only
Mhm.
time they did it in the first season. And it was so iconic that they basically did it every single season for the first couple in that second episode. So it was sort of like had its own spot because it was so iconic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the legacy and just the iconicness of the moment compiled with like Gervase's reaction to it as well. Like, not only is it in the top tier for me, but I would argue we've gotten a lot to go from here. But like, it might be fairly tough to beat when we
Yeah.
look back on it.
And Mike, I think you could even argue that it inspired like a whole other like genre of like I feel like that half of Fear Factor was that like, hey, what if we like like we'll get
Okay, so
people eating weird stuff.
I
I
go so
was
far
gonna
as to say there would be no Joe Rogan podcast without Gervase and the Bhutan.
Oh my
goodness.
god. Wow.
Whoa.
Alternate
Um,
timeline. Yeah.
I was gonna ask, is Fear Factor a thing at this point? Like, has
I
Fear
believe
No.
Factor come
I
out?
think Fear Factor was 2001, I want to say, and this was obviously summer of
Oh,
2000.
I thought you meant I think Fear Factor came up out of the reality boom following the
Okay.
first season. So I thought you were saying is Fear Factor on now. I was like I do not
No,
believe
at
in
7
its
years
current form.
old. At
Yes.
7 years old, Fear Factor was my favorite reality television show. I
Did you
loved
like it when they would eat stuff on Fear Factor?
I liked it better when they would have to like get in crates like full of ants and stuff. I always like watching them
Crates,
squirm. That was
crates full of ants.
yeah, you know, like they would have to like
That's just
lay
that's just called
down in
Big Brother,
boxes.
Maggie. That's called living in the Big Brother house.
No, it's like they would like lay down in these boxes and they would like pour like snakes or like, you know, like cockroaches on them and it would crawl
Mhm.
all over them and they had to stay for like 5 minutes or something. That
Mhm.
was always I was like, "Oh my gosh," because that's something I don't know I could do. That was the
Mhm.
one that I was like, I would rather eat anything than
Would you
do that.
rather eat the cockroaches while you're in the crate? Because that's significantly less
No.
cockroaches if you eat them.
Yes. Interesting. Would you rather be in a crate with one giant mosquito or a whole bunch of tiny mosquitoes that
Or be
would
comfortable
bite
with
you?
my
Yes.
relationship, my current
Yes.
relationship with
I'm
mosquitoes.
I'm not gonna cuddle with a giant mosquito in a crate, okay? I'm not gonna be that intimate with bugs.
All right. Like
Gives another
we're
term to bed bugs.
All right, let's talk about what is going on here with our next person.
Well, we talk about this is an instance of food perhaps existing in this survivor moment or not. The food in
Was it
question,
imaginary food?
yeah, it was not exactly seen, but was certainly talked about. Let's go to another infamous episode 2 of Survivor, which also had a gross food eating challenge. We're talking about Kel, aka Cal, and the beef jerky.
Cal. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, they said if he was dying in the desert, they give him a drink of water, but would they give him the beef jerky? Because apparently he ate it.
Okay. Maggie, what's your take on beef jerky gate?
So again, okay, so I didn't think that so I didn't watch Borneo live, I don't think.
Okay.
I have no memories. I
Yeah,
have a lot of
she was listening
memories.
to Stern, and they're like, okay, you got to watch
Yeah.
the show. And she's like, okay, I guess I'll watch it now. Thanks, Howard.
Yeah.
I do remember I watched Australia live. And I don't remember this moment. I have very little memories, but I remember actually another moment that I put on the list that got axed that I just found out in the chat is not on the list. And it was when Tina in that night vision was crawling out onto the log,
Yes.
getting the
Following the
rice
flood.
from the
Sure.
yes. I remember that like as a child and being like, what is this show? I don't remember this beef jerky moment. But when I started my rewatch of Survivor in like 2019-ish, and I started listening to Evolution of Strategy, I remember this being such a sticking point for you and Josh Wigler. Like, did he eat the beef jerky?
Did he eat the beef jerky? Yes.
And you guys seemed to think that he did.
So
So I'm agreeing.
yeah,
With that.
I don't know if I've ever, Mike, have we ever gotten to talk about this before in
Nah,
any of our
not you and I.
conversations? Yeah.
Not you and I. You did a podcast, I remember, I think it was with Cause, of like biggest survivors unsolved mysteries.
Yeah,
in
I
which
believe
this
it was with
talked
Gordon
about.
Holmes. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, was it with Gordon Holmes? Yeah, maybe.
Yes. And so, yeah, and this was one of the questions. So, many of the people that were out there that claim that, from the Ogakor tribe, I don't know if we asked Colby about it when we had the chance to talk to him when we were in Austin, Texas in 2017. But Jerry, Amber, Tina, Mitchell, they are all in the camp of still to this day. Yes, Kel had the beef jerky. We have spoken with Chef Keith and also Marilyn Mad Dog Hershey on the Talking with T-Bird. I believe they both said that they thought it was like a witch hunt, that he didn't have it. By the way, that interview with Marilyn Mad Dog Hershey, one of my all-time favorites in the history of Rob as a podcast,
So
that she is a constellation. And I don't know. I don't know. I've heard it both ways. That he went through and again, this might have been something that they were already thinking, but allegedly he went through the security to get to Australia and was seen carrying an obscene amount of beef jerky, and that
And,
there was yes.
Knitted it into his clothing or something?
That's allegedly put it through his clothes. I know when I went through on Survivor the Amazon, that they went through all of our, I guess not good enough based on granola bar gate. But they searched our bag, and it was oh, this is to make sure nobody has beef jerky, So I don't know. I don't know. I guess if I had a gun to my head, I think he did have it because he came across Maggie so guilty when they confront him about it. Yeah.
This seems, I mean, look, no disrespect to Cal from Survivor Australia. He seems like the type. If he had obscene amounts of beef jerky in the airport, he seems like the type to sew it into his clothes and be like, I'm getting one over on people. I would believe that.
Or even when you find you washed a $5 bill in the laundry, it could have just happened that he brought so much beef jerky with him that he came onto the show. He's like, oh my God. Oh, I left some beef jerky in my pocket. Oh no. Well, waste not, want not. I totally agree that his excuse has always sat with me of I had a piece of grass smushed up against my teeth. That's what you were seeing, not me eating beef jerky, which is perhaps one of the oddest excuses in human history.
Yeah. And Also that he's like they accuse him of that, and he's like and I was thinking about it, and I have some razors and I want to give them to everybody, so it just seems very weird that you get accused of something that you're like, let me tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you something right now. Like I feel like that no normal human being would act that way.
And I tend to believe if like people who are Survivor mainstays, who have years and years of like coming back to the show, who've done it many times, who have plenty of stories to tell, are still like people like Tina, Amber, and Jerry. Like I do believe them. Like, and
Mhm.
I believe that they at least believe it. You know, like because at this point, what purpose do they have to lie? Especially somebody like Amber. You know, like why is
Mhm.
Amber getting on and being like, he definitely had beef jerky? Like she met her husband and won the show. And you know what I mean? Like, why is that something that's like deeply important to her if it's not something that she fully believes?
Should beef jerky have been one of the items you could buy on the edge of extinction just to like rile Amber up?
You know, one time I saw a guy. Yeah, that would be good. That'd be a good throwback. Yeah, Survivor has really like abandoned like beef jerky as like one of its like principle. I mean, I guess maybe too much controversy, Mike.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
could be a thing, right? Where they're just like, it's like the car curse, right? Like, okay, they're not offering cars anymore because of Dreams and Meow Man. They're not offering beef jerky anymore. Thanks, Cal.
Okay, this was a huge moment. Certainly iconic moment. How iconic was it? I guess let's see as we put it on the list. But again, this was again huge Survivor was like red hot, 40 plus million people watching the show on a Thursday night. This was the first like normal Thursday night episode of Survivor
Mm-hmm.
after the Sunday night premiere. I think that it was also like national news about what happened here with the beef jerky. Did he have it? Did he not have it? So it was a huge moment at the time for Cal.
Yeah, that's why it's tough. Like, I'm debating worth playing for because it's so iconic, but I wonder if, like, does it just put in my life as fine considering, like, yes, this is the legacy of Kel, but Kel has only played in one season. You know, like, how much is this balanced against some of the other things that we have talked about or are going to talk about?
I think that this moment, though, like this would only happen in season 2 of the show, 2 or
Mm-hmm.
3. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
somebody thinking that watching the first season, thinking that they can outgame it, that they can outsmart it, and the producer's not really having the wherewithal to like, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so this type of thing only happened early on, and it was a huge sticking point
Like somebody trying to
during the season.
sneak a cell phone into claim to fame.
E exactly,
Mm-hmm.
Rob,
Exactly.
exactly.
Cal walked so Maxwell could fly.
Right.
Um, I again, this is one of the things where I watched this season and don't have memories of this, but I was also 7 years old.
Right.
So, like, this is something I would rely on you 2 more to tier for us, but I
Sure.
would be okay with putting it lower of worth playing for. To me, this feels like a worth playing for moment.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Mike. I feel like it's an important moment. It involves food. I feel like that there are other things that are like lesser known things. Like again, I don't want to do the whole list where it's like moments from like the first like 3 seasons are like the whole top tier because those got the most attention. But like this feels important.
Oh, incredibly so. I mean, like Maggie said, if the entire onus of Survivor, right, is like building a society together, some of that does involve the drama that is around resources and that ability to like skirt the rules as well. And I feel like this was one of those first times where like this was a major issue. And it's not even about the beef jerky, it's more so this idea of like hoarding food for yourself, which we will certainly talk about, will
Mhm.
come up in a couple times over the list. So it is kind of a trendsetter in that way.
Okay.
I'm and
So
now
let's
now
bump
I'm
it up.
talked my yeah, I've talked myself into putting it on the back of worth playing for at the moment.
All
I
right.
think that that's right. That feels right to me.
All right. Let's
As
leave it
somebody
there.
who, watched from the beginning on, was not here for the hoopla of it all, that does feel right though.
Okay. But I do want to make sure that we're not like over like weighing like how big things were like at the time as opposed to like how they have held up over that time.
But I do feel like, I mean, listen, you rewatched Survivor Australia recently, Rob. I know I did as well when I covered for you on the countdown. Like the entire episode revolves around this. And yes,
Yes.
it is more old school Survivor where like those become more tantamount issues than, outright strategy proper. But like the fact that there is an entire episode and arguably an entire boot structured around this moment feels incredibly important to me.
And
Hmm.
also, again, I just want to reiterate, this only happens because it's season 2. Like this is not something that could even possibly probably have happened season 10 of Survivor, because the producers would have been advanced enough to be like, but because
Yeah.
the show was so brand new, this is why this moment can happen,
And
and give it did.
And honestly, I kind of feel like if it did happen in season 10, they wouldn't have shown it that way. I think they would have like
Yes.
made up some other reason like that, like, oh, like Kel isn't like fitting in with the group as opposed to like
Mhm.
talking about that. Did he sneak stuff into the game?
Right. And they still
Because
had
then the
that, right? They
producers would
had
be embarrassed.
Yeah, and they had the infamous stuff, right, with Colby being like, kill Kim Fish or rubber ducky out of a bathtub. So, like, there was certainly stuff, and that's, I think, to the point that you were making before about, Mad Dog and Keith both saying that, Kel wasn't fitting in anyway, and this was an excuse to, like, further push him down the ladder when it came to the tribe. But, I mean, it's just such a big food moment, and if we're talking about food moments, I feel like that has to be up there.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Are either of you big beef jerky fans generally?
No.
No, I think the wetter the meat, the better for me. Don't dry it out, in my opinion.
I can't have beef. I end up like Wes Snail if I
Okay.
have beef. So
Yeah.
no red
Yeah.
meat for this girl.
I'd say it's fine. I'd probably do more turkey jerky, if anything.
If you had
Okay.
to bring a type of jerky out there onto Survivor, would it be turkey jerky?
Yeah, that it's fine. It's not my favorite go-to thing, but I feel like it's not bad
The
at a
thing that
pinch.
always for me, what I would be like in high school when people would, eat those Slim Jims. I
Yes.
was always like,
Mm,
I
Oh
can't.
yeah.
exactly. Step
Uh-uh.
into a Slim Jim.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
It's a little bit like riding the line between a snack and a meal.
It's also just like stinky. It's like opening a jar
Mhm.
of pickles. It's like
Mhm.
everybody now
Mm.
has to smell your food, your
Yeah, I
snack.
feel like that if the turkey jerky, you don't get as much of that, so it's a little bit,
Mhm.
Yeah.
not as overpowering.
We're
Okay.
Tell
talking about food so much with Rob, Mike. How did we get him to
I
agree to
know.
do
Look, we were
this?
able to like open up the tightest vault I've ever seen in
I
podcast history
know.
and actually get you to express
But
opinions
we're
about
here to
food.
talk about food.
No, I
Okay.
know. It's great though.
I suppose so, yeah. If the table's set, like you're gonna sit down and eat, but if we're just like offering you something while you're standing around, you're like, no, no, no. This is a podcast where we're talking about other things.
Mhm. Okay. Let's then discuss another moment. Okay. All right.
Well,
Mike, what do you have here?
this perfectly tees up what's happening next. You mention a time when Survivor was red hot. Let's talk about a hot moment where people were perhaps wearing red buffs or they were in the buff. It is a moment that produced a lot of eyes at a time where maybe even around that time, Survivor was starting to wane in many viewers' eyes. We were sort of past the time of Kel and the beef jerky, but it was a moment big enough to elicit an entire Playboy centerfold. We are, of course, talking about a Roman, Rob, that you were there
Illicit
personally
and it
for.
was explicit.
Exactly. We are talking the merge of Survivor the Amazon when Jenna and Heidi get naked for chocolate and peanut butter.
Okay. Maggie, you and Mary did such an artful job describing some of these moments when we got together
Mhm.
during the all-time top 40 season countdown. Um,
Mhm.
how do you feel about this moment on our list?
Okay. So I feel very strongly about this moment. And not just because I know you just expressed, like, I'm worried that all the top moments are going to be OG moments. And this is more an OG moment. But I will say, when I started watching Survivor from beginning to end, the person that I was seeing at the time was like, there is a moment in one of those early seasons where these two girls get naked for chocolate and peanut butter. Like, just wait, that happens. So
Hmm.
I feel like this is one of those moments that if you're talking about like to anybody who watched Survivor, like anyone who watched Survivor in the early days, and you're like, so can you tell me like a Survivor food moment? They would be like, oh, what about the chocolate and peanut butter girls? Like this had
Yeah.
cultural, this would never happen today, ever.
No,
Because I think
yeah.
Survivor
I mean,
fancies
for,
themselves a
for
classic
various
show.
reasons.
Everybody
Angelina-
would be fired. Right.
Angelina would be like, hold on, can we please put something else out there? I do not want this to happen.
Yes. And of course, it's a moment where this was not like the show is like, all right, ladies, get naked. This was something Jenna and Heidi were like, I will get naked for chocolate and peanut butter.
It was
now.
their idea.
It
That's the number one thing to remember. It's like this shit. Look, it was their idea. They put it out there, but production was like, bet. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and so was Rob Cesternino.
No cap. Literally, no cap. Take off your cap.
Yeah.
If you don't get these girls some chocolate and peanut butter right now, everybody's seen the clip. But this moment, I definitely think like this, Jenna and Heidi are like the OG Instagram ready, influencer ready reality girls.
No, you know what? That's right. And now look, Heidi, everything worked out fine for Heidi. But yeah, for Jenna was robbed that she should have played in another time when she could have been just absolutely killing it on Instagram.
Yes, like these girls are the OG, like I'm going on the show, I'm going to be an influencer, I'm going to sell some flat tummy tea. And the equivalent of that in 2004 is a Playboy centerfold, I actually listened to a podcast yesterday with the girls from the Girls Next Door that was on E! Those Playboy Hugh Hefner's girlfriends. And they were talking about how in the early 2000s and especially the 90s, like being a Playboy centerfold was a legitimate way to break into the entertainment industry. Like it's such a different time now. When I was growing up, like Playboy was trashy. It was not at all like those girls. I mean, I grew up in a very conservative household, but like that was not, at all anything that you would want to aspire to be. But in the 90s and stuff, like Pamela Anderson, Jenny McCarthy, these women who had very illustrious film careers, who were very respected in the film industry, people like Jenny McCarthy who had their own sitcom, like I completely understand why Jenna and Heidi would be like, this is the thing. Like we are about to be on TV. Let's stretch this. And stretch it they did. I mean, they got what they wanted out of the moment for sure.
Yeah. They also got paid for that also. Like I think it was also like, at least like, 6 figures each, I think, for doing that. So and it was something that, had been talked about like and discussed like even in the actual playing of the game. Like this was something that like that was being discussed. So
and I'm telling the OG influencer reality girls.
Right. So I just look at this combo again. I'm not talking about Jenna and Heidi. I'm talking about the food here of the
lame.
They asked for chocolate and peanut butter. They gave these women Oreos, peanut butter, and a Coke.
Well, I'm trying to remember, Rob. Yeah, you have more of a memory than this than I do. Like, did
Makes
Jeff
sense.
offer one item and they said, "I do this for chocolate"? Like, the Oreos were like impromptu?
Well, no, I think that they scrambled. So Jenna and Heidi had been like talking about this like all day of like, okay, we kind of knew what the challenge was going to be. Based off of like, okay, first challenge of the merge, it's gonna be endurance. They're gonna offer us things like we're eating today. Let's hold out and for some reason that sort of like got concocted into, well, what if we just say we'll get naked and they give us this stuff? It's like, but I never heard of that before.
Interesting. I
That's
wish
interesting.
What a
That's
thought,
interesting.
ladies.
Yeah.
What a thought, ladies. I will say also, how unsexily did they get naked on those polls? They like, it's like there wasn't like a way to like, ooh, they were like, okay, are we doing it? Do we get our peanut butter? It was like not like, you would think if you're trying to make it like this big, like sexy thing that it would be more like they're stripping down, but they like shoved their pants to the ground because they didn't want to fall, and they were like, "Hello, do we get our peanut
Mm-hmm.
butter now?"
Yeah, it's almost as if they were like strip searched of like putting their hands up, like,
Yes.
all right,
Yes.
there's nothing here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Put your shorts on the ground where we can see them. Okay. All right.
Literally,
Don't move.
that's what they did.
Yes. And yeah, ultimately, yeah, that's what happened. And then they jumped. Like, I think that they were like, they put that out there, and it was before Jeff had like offered anything up to tempt people. And then you just heard the people like frantically like on the radio, like, okay, can we get the thing out of here? Because we're out in the middle of nowhere. You know, they had certain things, and like that, I guess that was not a thing that they had there. They had to like radio it in, and then I'm sure they was like frantically like rummaging through, like, what do we have? What do we have? What do we have? So
craft services trying to figure out if there's any chocolate.
Yeah. All right. Someone go visit the La Kroger nearby and go get some Oreos stat.
And it was probably like 15, 20 minutes between when they made their initial bid to when like they got out there with the stuff. So
that's wild. So did at that point in time, did they have to like keep convincing them to do it? It seems like, to your point, this is an idea they had, but it was like, okay, just making sure you want to do this because we are kind of like having to vamp right now for when we get all the sandwich cookies together. Just making sure that you still want to make this beautiful TV moment happen.
No, I don't think that they were so much like just like checking back in with them frantically, but they were like, you know, I guess they were under the impression like, okay, well, hold on, like you don't get the chocolate or the peanut butter if like, you know, if you want that, you got to hold on. So, yeah. It was definitely like I can't believe this is going to happen. Can't believe we're doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue not since like just the character of Jerry Manthe did Survivor make headlines as much as it did with the chocolate and peanut butter. Like for me, it's that and Dead Grandma that I think ever since then Survivor has not necessarily been vaulted that much into the forefront of the zeitgeist. Look, sex sells in a certain way. And I think going back to what we were talking about with the Boo Todd, it was certainly a bit of sensationalism of like, I can't believe they're doing that on TV.
And I think Rob and Amber proposal also, I think that was like, you know, kind of like a news story also.
Yeah, very different type of love being shown, I suppose.
Different type of love. Okay,
so love between ladies and chocolate and peanut butter.
So let's place this. By the way, chocolate and peanut butter is pretty great also, by the way. Okay.
I don't know about the soda though.
That's what I'm saying. But and you know, Oreos and peanut butter. That's I guess that could be a thing.
That's what they had in mind, those girls, when they said they wanted chocolate and peanut butter. Oreos is not like a delicious chocolatey treat.
Yes,
you know?
It's not decadent. And then with a Coke, you know, Oreos in a Coke is pretty gross.
I mean, I would also say this
peanut
is just
butter
like,
and Coke is gross. Yeah.
Congratulations, ladies. You stripped for type 1 diabetes, in my opinion, with this plate that you just got. I'm just like, it's sugar out the wazoo.
Okay. Don't shame them, Mike. Come on.
I'm not. Listen, again, like you
said. They
weigh
weigh like 80 pounds.
I know.
Let them eat.
I will say also to Maggie's point earlier, I think one of the most unfortunate things is like after they strip, they then have to jump into the water with their pants around their ankles, which is like very unglamorous, I would say, considering how racy the moment was.
The whole thing is deeply unsexy. Like, I know they got naked, but like, there's nothing sensual about it. They're like weigh 80 pounds. They have their little sunglasses on, and they're like, "Do we get our peanut butter?" And then they jump into the water with their pants around their ankles and swim up, and their hair's like this. And they're like, like it's not like this. It's salacious. Like, if you heard about it, you'd be like, "Oh my God. These girls are getting." It's very not that. It feels very much
if there was like a Harlequin romance novel, right, of like she decadently slipped her pants around her ankle, she delicately tripped into the water while her pants were still festooned around her. Yeah, exactly. Like a dolphin attempting to make its way out of an aquarium tank and failing. It's not exactly the most decadently described manner of doing things, but beggars can't be choosers.
Okay. All right. So Jenna and Heidi strip for chocolate and peanut butter. Okay. Not forget you go home goodbye, right?
No, I mean, listen,
Should it
this is
be in
worth
the
playing
row
for.
with chocolate? Ain't no Hershey.
It's worth-
Ain't no Hershey
it's
bar
worth
is
paying
exactly what
for.
they were saying. Yeah. How are the
Yeah.
Oreos? Well, it ain't no Hershey bar.
Mm.
What if instead what they did was they had them wait for even longer because they radioed Colby Donaldson, the chocolate man himself, and had him fly out to offer them peanut butter.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a non-zero chance they would have jumped off if it was just Colby Donaldson and peanut butter.
Colby and peanut butter? Oh my God. As Jerry Manthe said that she was she wanted to lick chocolate off of some hot dude's bod.
Yeah. And so I think
Mhm.
like that would have been the fantasy coming true of Colby being like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but nice to meet you.
Mhm.
You wanna eat peanut butter with me, I suppose? I don't
Mhm.
know what's going on here.
Okay. All right. So where should this go? Is this into My Life is Fine?
It's worth playing for, Rob. Come
Worth
on.
playing for. Okay.
Yeah.
Look, I don't want to put my thumb on this scale.
No, I think, for me, I wasn't around when this was live. I wasn't around when any of these early seasons were live. Yes, you were, Rob. Your commentary is in fact in the clip. If we were to play the clip, we would hear your thoughts on it. But for me, this is all time. I love Survivor the Amazon though, but this is all time. Like I would put it at the front of worth playing for. So, but I do think that I don't have the context of, the delicacy food challenge and things like that. I do think the fact that I was doing a early rewatch of Survivor and someone was like, oh, wait till you get to the chocolate and peanut butter moment, like that I do think is sort of indicative of how big of a deal this is. But yeah, that's my thought.
I right now would make this the cream and the veritable Oreo that are the top 3 moments and worth playing for. I would put it above Kettle and behind Gervase because while this was indeed iconic, I just feel like going back again to your point, Rob, about the Boutade challenge, like the success of that challenge spawned a bunch of moments that we're about to talk about in all of these other delicacy challenges. Like that created a Survivor moment. Whereas this one, to your point, was maybe a bit more planned out, a bit more inorganic.
Yes. Also, when we are going through our all-time most iconic moments, I think that this is a moment that Survivor pretends does not exist anymore. So, I don't know if it should be the top of our list.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. Did you write about that when you and Steven did the official Survivor guidebook?
I'd have to go. I have it. I have it right here. You want me to see if I can see what's there? Okay.
Thumb through it and let's see if that's the case. Because I mean, listen, it's closely associated with Survivor the Amazon. I would argue, Maggie, that it's probably like the most associated memory with Survivor the Amazon. No.
Yeah. So I do have the
definitely. Copy. Oh, we should scroll up so we're not spoiling the rest of the list for everybody.
Sorry,
here
it's okay. That was the book hit the keyboard. So
No
this is a large book. Let me go with a bigger picture here.
Yes, let's do some nice shilling for like a really awesome book.
Yeah, so I have here that I did the podcast last week with Cynthia Wong, who wrote the Survivor, the official collector's edition of it's a very glossy about 40 season retrospective of Survivor. And I think there is mention of it. So they have something about every single season. And for this in Survivor the Amazon, they did mention that it was like mentioned. I don't think it was depicted. Actually, no, I'm sorry. There is a section, Girls Gone Wilder.
Oh,
yes. Yep. Yes, and how about this? The pixelated nudity is shown here for everybody at home.
What I'm talking about with the level of like sensuality that she's like her buff on her head and like it's not
So here's the inset of what this looks like.
It's a very very different type of centerfold from back in 2003.
Yes, and what they say here again. I hope I won't get myself in trouble here. That episode 7 immunity, nope. Savory snacks, meh. Peanut butter and chocolate, yes. Allies Heidi and Jenna told Jeff they would strip for the prize treat, so the host was happy to oblige with peanut butter and Oreos. After some strategic pixelation, the women got their craving satisfied in August of 2003, landed a cover and spread in Playboy magazine.
Yeah, so there you go. It made the book. Made the book of Survivor seasons. I don't know if that's not iconic. I don't know what is.
Yes. Yep. Also, I will also say from Survivor Amazon musings, an interview with Heidi Strobel in the Survivor, the official collector's edition. Okay. All right.
That's great.
Yes. All right. Let's move on to our next one. Mike, what do you have for us next?
Well, let's talk about a different type of bone, shall we? Let's go to only a few seasons.
From what? Wait, what bone are we talking about?
I mean, listen,
come on, Rob.
Playboy spreads. Come on. We're not Maggie in kindergarten watching Survivor Bonio. Okay, I just said Bonio. Whoops. All right. Well, let's move on here to the next Battle of the Sexes season. We are going to Survivor Vanuatu, and I can think of no better representation of like how contentious the whole men versus women dynamics were this season. When we talk about the women, I believe it was Leanne and I want to say Eliza. Yeah, they went on a reward and they got a bunch of chicken wings. They brought them back to the Alinta camp and had the women specifically be able to eat the remnants of the chicken wings, and then claim to the men, "Oh yeah, we only brought back the bones for you guys to eat."
They sucked on the bones.
You look better than a chicken wing in a knapsack. Okay.
Oh, God.
All right. The women let the men just suck the chicken bones that they'd already eaten. How rude.
Love this moment. I love this moment. This is just like so terrible. This is bad behavior to the max. Like, how dare they give the men these chicken bones that they've already licked clean for them to suck on, and then the men are in the confessionals like, that was so nice of them to bring these chicken bones, making them look like absolute fools. Like, this moment makes me cackle every time I think about it. Just Sarge being like, it's amazing, so nice of them to bring back the chicken bones for us to have. Like, oh my gosh, so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great representation, again, of that power dynamic. At that point in the game, the women were just completely in control of everything. And so it was very much them saying, you know, we have them literally eating out of the palm of our hands, and they're just sucking on the scraps and dregs of chicken bones that we actually shared with our alliance. It's like a sort of hidden coconut shop, right? These are the people that we pride over the other ones who get to feast over the other people.
Yeah, it's a fun moment for sure in the season, but look, it was, I think it was well done. It was like, hey, okay, we're allies. Like, okay, that we had this, we share this secret. Like, I don't think it ever came up that the men ever found out about it. And even if it did, you know, what were they going to do about it? And they were happy to get the bones.
That's why it's so funny, because they don't even know that they're being like made fools of. And they're like, this is so nice of them. Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else to add to this one?
No, I don't think so. I think it just sort of speaks for itself. And again, I think serves as a nice microcosm of what the dynamics were like at the time of literally the women were feasting and the men were starving just to like scrape by for one more day in the game.
Okay. All right. So where do we want to put the Vanuatu women and the chicken bones?
I don't think Forget You Go Home Goodbye.
Okay.
It's not trash, like what the bones would actually be. I think it's actually fine right there behind. I think it's not as iconic as Taco Overload. I think, to Maggie's point, it's not absolute garbage. But I would say of the 7 we've encountered so far, I think it probably is the least iconic.
And I think that it says something that we just spent probably 20 minutes talking about chocolate and peanut butter, which is second and worth playing for. And we probably spent about 20 seconds talking about the chicken bones. So, you know, I think that's
in fairness, I actually was there. So for the other thing, like if I was on Survivor Vanuatu, I'm sure I would have more to say about this.
Sure. But, you know. I do think that it's a bit.
Well, actually, you wouldn't, because you would be the one that was just given the bones.
I would be
like, this is news to me.
Really? You didn't let us have any chicken? You couldn't have saved us a drumette? Nothing?
You can't
Yeah.
spare one square?
Nothing. Yeah. So all right. I mean, it's yeah. Ain't no Hershey bar is fine for me. Mag, do you feel like it's not being given enough of a spotlight?
Personally, I would move it above Wes, but I think that this is so interesting because we have such different relationships with the seasons and like the moments of when we watched it. Like I know San Juan del Sur was when like the podcast was really beginning. So there's a ton of discourse probably around that moment and like memories involving the podcast and the hashtag
Yes.
and all of that. And for me, somebody who just sat down and individually watched all these seasons without all of that context, the Vanuatu chicken bones sticks out to me way more as like something hilarious and ridiculous that happened.
Yeah.
But
I don't have a
do think,
problem with moving the chicken bones ahead of the taco overload.
Mike.
I mean, I'll probably outvote it from that perspective, but sure, I'll figuratively sign off on it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, listen, you've had me at Survivor Vanuatu, okay? If we're going to talk about any moments from it, I'm more than happy to give it its due.
Okay.
Great.
Let's talk about the next moment up for debate. Mike, what is it?
Well, it's been a while since we've talked about Gervase, don't you think? We've got another moment for him. We're talking about from the Boutade Reprise season, not the OG. It seems that Gervase, I didn't even realize until we compiled these moments, like might be the castaway most associated with food in his Survivor career. Because
Interesting.
it is around food, he is going to foster a relationship with the tightest ally he'll have across his Survivor career. This is, of course, the running storyline of the Coconut Bandits, where he and Tyson would squirrel away their own private stash of coconuts to enjoy by themselves.
Okay. Coconut Bandits. It really did bring Tyson and Gervase together. And I think it was like a really good, character note about Tyson and the way that he was playing the game. Maggie, how do you feel about the Coconut Bandits?
I think that it's really fun. I think that it's a really great, moment for the list at large. I think that this is what the list is all about. It has game implications. It's hilarious. It has character implications. I think it's fantastic. It's totally, to me, it says, I associate this much more with Tyson than I do with Gervase, but I think that it's just really fun. The idea of these guys going away and laughing about how dumb everybody else is while stealing all the coconuts is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's also, I would say, to your point, like a larger representation of Tyson this entire season. Going back to the chicken wings example, I remember when they did another eat and compete challenge, right? And Tyson is going through the chicken like the Tasmanian devil, just like throwing everything everywhere for the poor production crew to have to clean up afterwards. But it does start here. Though I think we should have realized in retrospect, like the dude walked in with a cupcake on his belt. You knew that there was going to be food associated with this man the entire season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair
Sure.
point. It was right in front of us the whole time. I thought it's also like the coconut bandits. It's not just them stealing it, but also like that. There's like a couple moments of like Monica Culpepper, like I don't understand these coconuts. Like they have nothing in them. It's so weird. Like and they like had like a way to like sort of just like tap into them and get the juice out and then not let anybody know exactly how they were pulling off the perfect heist.
It's
It's very
fun.
fun. Yeah.
I think it's telling that it's like the coconut bandits, it's like this
Mm-hmm.
like game of like the heist, it's like very
Right.
lighthearted, the whole thing.
Right. If they were, the coconut criminals, it wouldn't have worked.
Mm-hmm.
Bandits is doing a lot of
Definitely.
work there.
Yeah, the
Okay.
bandits, it
Mm-hmm.
calls back right to like the old West, where I think we're sort of removed from that. They were like, oh yeah, Jesse James, Billy the Kid, they're fun. That's what these guys are bringing, like bandito vibes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People love
Exactly.
bandits. Like if you told somebody that their car was stolen by bandits, I think they'd be like much more okay with it than their car was stolen by criminals.
Interesting. So it's all about brand. It's the brandits, right? Of like, okay, like if you are a government official and you're trying to spin a crime wave in your city, it's like, well, they've got some bandits out there, and people are like, oh, that's cute. Do they have little
Yeah.
neckerchiefs?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Neckerchiefs.
Yes. Okay. Mike, somebody should run with that.
Yeah, I think. Listen, Rupert, if you want to run again for your platform, like run on a bandit-heavy platform, and I think you'll be fine.
We've got to do something about these bandits. Okay.
We've got to catch them like I did when I peed on the fish.
All right. Let's go ahead and bring in the CB, the Coconut Bandits. And so, all right, are they the first in Forget You, Go Home, Goodbye?
I don't think so.
No, I
All
still
right.
say no. I feel like it's a pretty iconic moment. So I feel like it's got to at
Yeah.
least be an Ain't No Hershey bar.
Okay. Are they at the top of Ain't No Hershey Bar?
I thought that they would be in My Life is Fine.
Well, I
Like,
just start at the bottom, Maggie, and we just keep
Oh,
going,
okay.
keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is
Okay.
not this is much like an auction proper where Brop sets the
Yes,
starting bid. That's almost always at the bottom here.
Are they at the back of My Life is Fine?
I think so.
Yeah, because I think that
so.
because I think that, Tyson has been associated with a lot of stuff on Survivor, so has Gervase as well. So I think we are grading on a bit of a curve of we're like, this isn't the most iconic Gervase moment. But I would still put, I think, Sandra and the fish, because it did lead to like such a big storyline in that particular episode. Whereas what Tyson and Gervase were doing was a storyline, but was very much purposely done behind the scenes, that it didn't have much like dramatic game implications.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mike, what is next?
All right, so we are going to something very private, to food rationing that was very public. It was on a plate, in fact, in front of the castaways at Survivor Gabon. This is one of those rare auction moments that we are indeed putting on the block right now. This is Randy and the cookies, when, ironically enough, given her name, a woman by the name of Sugar Kuiper ends up refusing one, then taking
Yes.
one.
Now, Maggie, you were on the panel when we talked about Survivor Gabon. So,
Why, yes, I was.
Yes. Okay. Tell us about this moment.
So Randy at the auction buys a plate of cookies that he wants. And they say, but Jeff has the stipulation, these are cookies for the tribe. They're the tribe's cookies. And Randy's like, oh, I have to give them to the tribe, share them. And Jeff is like, yes, these are for the tribe cookies. So Randy's passing out all the cookies and goes to Sugar and is like, would you like my cookie? And Sugar's like, no, I don't want a cookie from you, Randy. No, I'm not interested. And he's like, okay. And he moves along, and then he's still offering cookies. And Sugar's like, actually, hold on. And she grabs one and she gives it to Maddie behind her. And Randy's like, how dare you do that? And then they fight like cats and dogs. And literally, like, Randy's like, I hate Sugar. I want her out. She took my cookie. She's ungrateful. Like, this is the pettiness level that Gabon got to. And this is the reason that they, like, at the end of the day, that Randy was like, never, ever will I work with Sugar because of the cookies. And Randy got voted out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great moment. It's a great auction moment. It's a great food moment. It is one of the highlights of the season.
Yeah, I think again, it's very much, for lack of a better term, baked in the dynamics of it. We're up to that point, like Sugar and Randy were not exactly getting along. They had not. I don't think they had ever played together, if I'm recalling correctly, up to that point, because they had been separate on separate tribes, and this was only one vote after the merge head and the Charlie vote happened. And so Randy was very much on the back foot. And to add insult to injury, now Sugar is essentially like, insulting him to his face by overriding his rules. But I do like, to Maggie's point, the whole idea of like, Randy wins the cookies and Jeff is like, okay, that's for you or to share with the whole tribe. And Randy goes, yeah, but it's for me, right? And Jeff's like, Randy. And I love, again, that is Randy Bailey too, in a nutshell, right? Of like, curmudgeonly, ends up being generous if you catch him on a good day with his people, but like, he's always going to be. And I think there's also a really funny moment that picture that was shown was actually from, right, where Jeff narrates like, wow, Sugar not taking a cookie from Randy, and Randy turns to Jeff and says, you want to say that again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's just a great character moment for everybody involved, and
Mhm.
really showcases, what type of person, each person is in. Randy, like wants to do something nice for his friends, but then if you spurn his his offer, like, all right, fine, then no cookie for you. And then when she goes back and then is like, giving the other cookies away. Um,
And he's like,
he's
"That's not your cookie to give away.
yeah.
That's not yours to give away." And she's like, "It's a cookie, Randy. It was a cookie. Chill." Oh my gosh, it's so petty. It's so delicious. Like that's like what you want out of a food moment. Like a ridiculous, petty, causes drama for absolutely no reason. So good.
Did
And it's like
did you
the thing is Sugar is on her high horse about it. And she's like, "Randy, it's a cookie. Get over it." But like she knew exactly what she was doing. She was doing it to get under his skin.
Yeah, and she was also eating plenty of fruit up in the Sugar Shack, so, like, she was well
Exactly.
stuffed. Did you note, by the way, that, this past week, Sugar reunited with Maddie and publicized it
I
on social media?
did.
I did see that. Yes. Yes. Was there an occasion?
I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if it's National
Mhm.
Maddie Day or
It's
something
National Maddie
Maddie-like.
Day already? It sneaks up on you
Yeah, I
every
know,
year.
well, listen, we are recording on Matt Lagori's birthday, so perhaps, National Maddie Day was an early celebration.
Mhm. Okay. So, let's see where this places on our list. Okay. Forget You Go Home Goodbye. That was from Gabon. Could a Gabon moment end up there?
No,
No.
I
Okay.
also love that, like, you see this in the picture, like, Crystal Cox, the utterer of Forget You Go Home Goodbye to Randy in this episode, does happily take the cookie. I think it's just
Mhm.
because she is so damn starving at this point that she's like, listen, I'm not going to
Yeah.
refuse a handout right now.
I believe this is also the Forget You Go Home Goodbye episode.
It
Yeah,
is, in
Yeah.
yeah.
fact.
Okay. So just a little
Iconic
This
episode.
this might be, Rob, like, between all the various Outwit, Outplay lists we've done, like, the most talked about episode that we have done on this podcast
Mhm.
series.
And that's
Okay.
why it's ridiculous that Gabon is so lowly rated. It gives us so much. It gives and gives and gives, and we don't respect it at all.
And it shows. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, but it's rising up there. I feel like
Mhm.
that it was probably very poorly received, like from like the time that it aired, and has only grown in how much people love it at this point in time.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
especially
was
because
still in the bottom half of the countdown though.
well, I think it's
Hmm.
very
Like 30
polarizing.
something.
I think it like for some people it doesn't necessarily not to like relitigate conversations that have been had over like the past 2 years, but like I do imagine that there's this idea of okay, if you're not necessarily rooting for anybody, like does that help or hurt a season? I do think at least from people that I've been talking with like the train wreckiness of this season has made it seem better whereas I think in the moment it's sort of like San Juan del Sur, where I think in the moment people were like, I don't like these people. There's no strategy going on. You know, what the hell's happening here? And that's been looked upon very favorably. And I think that Gabon is that to a certain extent, but I think it is also a little more vitriolic
Yeah,
than
it's
San
that,
Juan
but
del Sur.
without the like brilliant end game of one of the most
Right.
exciting winners that they've ever
Yeah,
had.
I feel like that San
You
Juan
know?
del Sur by even by the end of that season, I feel like that basically like the people had come around to it, where Gabon has been like coming around for 10, 12 years.
Mhm. Exactly.
Okay,
So I,
all
I
right,
would I would definitely put it in my life as fine. I think the question is where.
all right. Better or worse than the Coconut Bandits?
I personally think better.
I think better as well. Better
Yeah,
or worse than the Fish?
I think better. I think dessert before dinner right now.
Mhm. Maggie?
I don't know. This is hard for me. I don't know.
To me, this is a more clear food moment.
Okay.
The fish are caught, but they're not cooked.
Okay. All
They
right.
are
No,
that they are, eventually going to be somebody's food. This is like an actual cookie that is being fought over. To me, I
Yeah,
think this is more of an iconic food moment.
okay. That's logic I can get behind. And I always have an opinion about everything, which is why I'm surprising myself here that some of these I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure where it should go because I just love them all. I love them all equally.
Hmm.
like a
That's
nice
not easy.
nice plate of cookies. You want to distribute them all on an equal level instead of try to partition out who do you like more than others.
Exactly.
Okay, Mike, what is the next moment to put into our list?
All right, well listen. We've ate a lot here. We need something to wash it all down. How about some drink? How about some wine, courtesy of the Casa de Charmin? This is, of course, from Survivor Exile Island. Talk about train wreck. Let's talk about the post-swap Kasaya tribe, where one episode, I believe it's Bob Dog's boot episode, he and Bruce camped out in the outhouse because there's no room in the shelter. They won, some wine and some fish, I believe, with the reward in that episode. And so they do end up housing essentially the entire bottle of wine over the course of the night because they are so like embittered about being on the bottom of the tribe.
Okay. Here is Casa del Charmin. Wine in the outhouse, Maggie.
I love it. It's so funny. I know it's not technically food, but I do think it counts because it's something that they were given to consume that is not, like island fodder. Like it was a
Okay.
reward. And I mean, just the fact that they smuggled a bottle of wine into an outhouse and they sat on top of a porta potty for the evening and drank an entire bottle of
Yes.
wine. And then
May not
Bruce
have been
was
used.
may not have been used.
Or,
Well, no, actually, no, I'm fairly sure. I think it's earlier in the episode where Bob Dog drops a deuce, does he not?
Okay.
We're
Yes,
like,
all right,
and they're all
right.
pissed. You're right. And they're
Yeah,
all so mad because they're like, we weren't going to use it.
Yeah, that's the entire storyline, right? Is like, yeah, he immediately goes in there and you have Courtney being like, oh my God, I can't believe he actually had the sanctity to do that. And she gets involved here where the next
When you
day,
gotta go,
right?
you gotta go.
Yeah, where the next day they admit to drinking the wine, and Bob Dog tells her to her face, like, I don't feel bad about drinking your wine. Maybe everybody else's, but I don't care I deprived you of this sweet, grapey goodness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Bruce drinks essentially an entire bottle of wine and then is evacuated for stomach issues mere days later. And I'm
Do
wondering,
you think there was a connection?
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it dried him out more. It's like that can't be good for his like how hydrated he is.
Oh, was it a dry wine? Was it like a Pinot Noir?
Hmm.
I'm not sure, but I feel like
Mhm.
when you're
It was a
dehydrated,
It was a Pinot
Things
Noir,
get
but
backed up.
he couldn't poop. That was the ultimate irony.
Yeah.
Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
Pinot Noir.
But yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. I think, again, like you said, it's not chewed up and consumed like food, but I feel like we can make the exception on the list here because it is so much fun. It's ridiculous, Rob. The first one that you and I did on this Outwit Outplay list series was like the Brandon moments. We talked about the Casa de Charmin. I love of all places, like housing the, stolen bottle of wine within there is just the icing on the cake.
And
Yeah.
they got kicked out of the shelter. Why did that? Like, there wasn't room for them, or were they just like?
I think it was
"Oh,
raining
didn't
so
make
bad that I think
room."
that they had sort of like the bad spots in the shelter. Like they were sort of
Mm.
like, there is like a little bit like of a pecking order. I feel like on these like survivor like sleeping arrangements. I think that they were
Mhm.
already like kind of on the outs of the tribe, and so I think by proxy they were sort of like on the outs of the shelter, and so they were like, hey,
I see.
you know what? You don't give us a good spot, F it. We're going in the outhouse. Yeah.
Fun.
All right. Is it because it's an outhouse? That's what makes this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Mhm.
think the location certainly helps, but I do think like the pettiness of guzzling the bottle of wine is also pretty epic in and of itself, right? That like, listen, who among us has not dished with a pal over a bottle of wine after a tough day? To do it like inside a place where Bob Dog took a crap no less than like 6 hours earlier as well, just is absolutely fantastic to boot.
Mhm. Okay.
Oh gosh, it's ridiculous.
Let's take a look at the list. All right. Forget you go home goodbye for the Casa del Charmin.
No.
Higher. Okay. What about Ain't No Hershey Bar? I feel like this is the right ballpark.
Yeah.
Better or worse than Taco Overload? Because Taco Overload, I'm sure Wes was looking for the outhouse at some point.
I don't care who's in there and what they're drinking. I'm using it.
I
Mhm.
think better.
Better. Okay.
Yeah, I think better. And I also think better than chicken bones.
Me
All
too.
right. Can it surpass the rice negotiations?
I don't think so.
This seems like that this is as far as it should go.
Yeah. I think
All right,
because I think if you ask any Survivor fan, Like, do you remember Angelina's rice negotiation? They would be like, oh, of course.
Yes.
But I think if you ask them, do you remember Bruce drinking wine in the outhouse? They would probably be like, huh?
Let me look in the
So
official collector's guide if Bruce in the
Exactly.
outhouse is in there.
Yeah, like it says, number 2 to the end. Bruce and Bobby in the outhouse drank a bottle of wine.
Is there a picture of Bruce in the outhouse with Bob Dog? There's a little bit about Bruce's exit. I don't see anything about Casa del Charmin.
Yeah, maybe Charmin
Unfortunately.
didn't sign
Darn.
off on its rights being signed off on for the book.
Yeah.
Maybe an oversight. Okay. All right. So there is Bruce. No mention about if the wine caused any of his problems.
The screen grab is so funny.
Okay.
Of just the outhouse in like night vision. That is so funny to me.
Okay. All right. Mike, what do you have for us next?
So let's go back to a delicacy challenge. And we didn't really overindulge in these, but this is one that Maggie insisted. This was part of her rider. This was something that she offered up like Jenna and Heidi did. We have to talk about lunch lady, janitor, whatever you want to call her. In this case, we're calling her balut eater, or at least attempted balut eater, Denise in Survivor China.
Okay. Maggie, tell us about this moment.
You just have
Why
to
was it
watch
so important? Okay. Are we gonna listen to a clip?
We have to listen. Yes.
All right. Let's listen in to Denise and James. That I believe this was all set up for to throw the challenge for Faye that it was that John Faye Long was trying to throw the challenge to John Who.
No, it was that John Who wanted to throw the challenge because remember Todd gave an idol to James, right? And was
Okay.
like,
Yes.
you need to throw it again. And so then everyone will vote for you and you play the idol to get rid of PG or Eric or Jamie.
We were robbed of what would have been an iconic all-time moment.
I mean,
Although we would have been robbed of James getting voted out with 2 idols then.
Yeah, but and we also get the fun stuff next episode, right? Of like Jamie playing the plank of wood as the fake idol. So like you're exchanging one iconic moment for another.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Here is a little bit of this exchange. Here we go.
Driver's ready. Go. James spitting it back up.
The cheeseburger. Oh, it's a sandwich. In my mouth. Ah! Get in there.
Denise takes a big chunk of feathers.
Yep. Hard to scream and eat something at the same time.
I think that was her first issue. Was like, listen, your mouth can only do one thing at one time. Don't multitask.
Yeah.
Why? Why? She's like, and the thing is, you don't get the visual. Obviously, I'm crying. You don't get the visual, obviously, because I'm literally crying because you don't have, we can't do that. But if you want to look it up, please do. But if you don't, essentially, she screams and takes a fistful of whatever this thing is and smashes it onto her face. She's like, ah! Like a rabid dog.
Yeah, she's attacking it. This is war.
And then when it doesn't work, she's like, all right, well, let me try the same thing. And she yells like, get in my mouth. Ah!
And Jeff is like so calm in his commentary as though this is the most normal thing he's ever seen. He's like, Denise takes a huge chunk of feathers and she's like, like eating it like a dog. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. And then James gives her a mercy, and ultimately that he eats the balut. I mean, was that the wrong call, Mike? Should he have just like, I guess it's a tie. I can't do it.
They would have still been out there if that was the case. Denise would be like graying her hair is just going for 15 years. Ah! It's gonna happen at some point. Ah!
When I texted my best friend, who is a bigger Survivor fan than I am, and was like, this is the idea. What's your do you have any moments? he just clipped it and sent it to me, like in text message form. He just clipped it, and I was crying. I was laughing so hard. He was like, that was the very first thing I thought of was Denise screaming, eating that thing in the delicacies challenge. Oh my gosh. It's
Was
just
was
so
she
good.
trying to like, I don't know, have dominance over it? Like, was that a primal roar?
I think she was trying to seem like epic. Like it was like,
Yeah,
like,
you
this
gotta
is
like
very-
psych yourself up.
Is this like her William Wallace moment?
Yes, Maggie, when you used to watch Fear Factor, is that what people did before they got in the crate with the ants?
No. No one has ever done
you
that
don't
ever
want to
on
spook the
television
ants.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody
We know
has
ants are
ever
very skittish. They really don't respond well to screams.
They don't like that. Do not like that at all.
Oh my god, yeah, I love
Oh.
this. This is, I mean, Denise is such an eclectic character. I would say almost maybe an underrated character in Survivor China, where there's so many random
An
things like
eclectic.
exactly, like her, you know, her love of martial arts, her like pseudo crushmance with James. Like, there's so many odd
Her
Denise
haircut.
moments if you
Mhm.
clock them throughout the season, and this might be at the top of the list for me. Her just going absolutely aggro, but it's not even that. I think it's even better due to the fact that it doesn't work in the
Oh,
slightest.
yeah.
That
Oh,
she is
that's what's funny.
massively failing, despite the fact that she is bellowing at these unborn chickens.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, she like fists it and smashes it onto her face. She's like, no, there's like no, like, she's just like, it's like, what do you think is gonna happen? You gotta
Yeah.
open your mouth. Oh my god.
Maybe it's a little bit like, okay, well, there are like bones and like beak. Maybe she like, if you smush it, like it's a little bit of like a baby bird thing, and then she's just gonna like feed it to herself then after that.
I really hope that that's what Denise did for every meal, not just gross food of like, hey, Denise, I brought you back some Boston Market. You want to dig in? Oh, sure. Thanks so much. Ah! Get in my mouth.
Yeah. I think I saw that approach in a celebration on the challenge recently also.
Exactly. Again, I think Sarah Lacina took her celebration tactics from the best in the form of Denise.
Yes. Was that a butok that she was miming that she was going to eat?
If
It
so, I
looked
think
more like
she would have been slapping her face more if it was a bouton.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wait,
Okay.
I'm surprised Denise didn't slap her face more if that was the case. Of like, she was yelling, get in my mouth, and like screaming at it. Had she tried like actual physical embodiment?
Okay.
Ugh.
I guess let's put Denise on the list here. Okay. She's not forget you go home goodbye, right?
I think she was saying that to
Right?
the balut, but no.
Right? Okay.
I
All right.
think that I'm gonna have to abstain from my
All right.
rating of this because I don't see it clearly. I think this is a
I
me
get that.
thing.
I get that.
So I'm gonna abstain.
All right.
here.
Mike, then where would you have this moment?
I might put it in my life is fine. It's tough because Denise, I think, with no offense to her, she might be screaming at her phone, for me regarding her as I think a more forgotten character in comparison to Randy, in comparison to Sandra, in comparison to Tyson and Gervase. But I do wonder if this moment kind of like supersedes how less known her character is to make the back of my life is fine. I'm thinking either back of my life is fine or top of Ain't No Hershey Bar. Because I think while she's not a well-regarded character, the moment in and of itself is pretty fantastic.
May I make a suggestion? I feel like that the rice negotiation should be at the back of my life is fine as opposed to at the top of Ain't No Hershey Bar, because I have a hard
Agreed.
time putting this past that. And I feel like that this should be at the top of Ain't No Hershey Bar, the Denise scene, as opposed to at the back of my life is fine.
Hey, we could do some interior decorating here.
You know,
So I think we
design.
move Angelina up and move this to the top.
feel like this is actually good. I feel like this is sort of becoming like worth playing for, is all time iconic. Like, you ask somebody who's a casual Survivor fan and they'll be like, yes, I remember that. My Life is Fine is for like the hardcore fans who like they have implications beyond the moment. Ain't no Hershey bar is how funny is it?
Yes. Okay. Yes. I think that these are like very, very funny moments that maybe do not like stand the ultimate test of time, but are sort of like bangers to go back to.
Yeah, these are like early funny 115 candidates, right? Whereas My Life is Fine would be more so the upper tier.
Okay. All right. Let's see, Mike, what do we have for us next?
All right, so we know that Denise loves to scream. Let's talk about someone who is probably most well known for letting out his own screams on Survivor, albeit in a very, very different fashion. But this is actually going to be from his second season. We are talking about Mike Skupin's unconventional tactics of deciding to eat uncooked rice in Survivor Philippines.
Yeah. I mean, this is a man that makes bad decisions. And he was also a person that was very obsessed with food. Maggie, do you have feelings about this?
You have made my life hell since being here. Forget you. Go home. Goodbye. That's my feeling.
Okay.
I like, yeah, 1, weird. 2, gross. 3, Skupin, gross. That's my thought.
No, there's gross and there's Skupin gross. 2 different
Yeah.
categories in and of itself.
Why, yes, there is.
So just to set the scene, to remind people as to what happened here, essentially, like, Mike Skupin had this belief that eating uncooked rice is just as good as cooked rice. He says it's sustenance. He basically says, if the chickens can eat it, why can't we? And so he would just shove his hand into the bag of rice and just eat it by the fistful like it's some sort of trail mix.
Yes. I mean, I guess coming out of a season where they did eat literal chicken feed on his season. So why not? And I think his thesis was the stomach is kind of like a slow cooker, a crock pot, if you will. Basically, there's like liquid in there. It's going to keep it at a certain temperature. Eventually, the rice will cook inside you.
Mike Skupin has about as much of an understanding of biology as he does of personal finances.
I think you're going to say as Terrence. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what a ridiculous proposition of like, yes, our stomach is at least at 100 degrees to be cooking at all times our food.
How did a Mike Skupin moment end up on this list?
I mean, listen, it's food. We had to put something and forget you go home goodbye, okay? Like, they all can't be winners.
It wasn't on my list, let me tell you.
Yeah, okay. Forget you. Go home. Goodbye, sir. Okay?
Yeah, I think much like the rice itself, it's something that not a lot of people will be able to stomach.
Yeah. I do not even like thinking about the idea of eating uncooked rice. I feel like it would crack your teeth.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing. It's like, I remember as a little kid, I would eat uncooked
just swallow
spaghetti.
it with water like aspirin.
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't
it's
know.
like very, very thin aspirin. If you think about it.
All right, Maggie, anything else about the uncooked rice?
No, it's disgusting. Let's move
Disgusting.
on.
Okay, I would just be like, "Ah! Ah!"
Get in my warm stomach.
Okay. All right, Mike, what is next here?
Well, you should have saved those wails of agony, Rob, because we're talking about something that, I'll be honest, probably doesn't play as well on the show itself, but has become iconic, I think, due to your coverage. And we're going super recent here. You ready to talk about stew, Rob?
Are we talking about stew?
We're talking about stew.
Okay. The legacy of stew. And see, now I thought that we were going to talk about pizza at the reunion based off of the picture.
We can do both. We can do both.
Which are we talking? Are we talking? Because I feel like that's a weird food moment of like, all right, everybody, we're gonna talk to people and then also like have them eat pizza at the same time.
Which would you rather talk about, Maggie?
I think we should talk about it all. If we're talking about legacy of stew,
anything that features the word stew.
Yeah, well, have always thought that Rob's issue with stew is wrong.
Yes.
I love stew. I think that if you and Nicole, because Nicole also has said that she thinks stew is disgusting. I think I want to have you and Nicole over to enjoy some stew that I make,
Yeah,
because I
and
think
that
that you
could
will
totally
change your
be. And
mind.
I have admitted that that I think that it is very possible that our respective moms might not have known how to make stew. That
This
is very
more of like
possible.
it's more of a lambast on Roseanne Cesternino. Lamb,
Mhm.
also a protein that can be
Mhm.
found in stew.
Right. It could it very well may be that there could have been subpar stew served to us at young ages.
Yes, I think that that perhaps is correct, because also, like, if you're a patron of Rob Has a Podcast, you have heard probably a lot of talk about crock pots recently. And I think
What a
that,
pitch for becoming a patron.
and
Hear
I
about
think
crock
that-
pots and stew.
I think that crock pot stew is gross. Like, like a lot of people are like, oh, I'll make stew. Let me throw a bunch of crap in a crock pot and turn it up. And like,
Mhm.
you have to do
Give
more
it a
than
kiss
that
on the
to
forehead.
make it. Yeah, exactly. Like a wow all day. And then it's maybe not as good as you thought it was
Wow,
going to be.
wow, wow, wow.
It's like, and then it's like maybe a bit of a letdown because people really didn't prep the stew properly. And like slow cookers are fine, but like not always like the best. And I feel like a lot of people have had gross stew in their life out of a crock pot, whereas like there's a whole, other side of stew that perhaps that's what Xander was talking about with the hearty potatoes.
Hearty
I'm
potatoes,
assuming.
carrots,
Mhm.
onions, warm broth. Yeah.
Warm broth.
But so I feel like that in the actual, like, so the stew I think was more iconic for the podcast because we talked about it so
Right.
much. But I feel like that on the show, I think that the people eating pizza for the reunion shows, I think was a bigger deal. So
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
I'd rather talk about STU, Stu, who makes the pizza.
So you're saying STFU to STEW.
Yeah.
But
No, I'm not saying STFU to anything.
But I think that I would agree that I more so talk about STU because obviously you have the Xander moment of like, you really undersold the stew. But outside of that, there is this weird thing where, again, first for Survivor, besides, actually, they didn't do it in Borneo. They didn't do a reunion on the island, right? They had Brian Gumbel come in several weeks after the fact. But this is the first time, like, they did this entire rigmarole of like, we're going to do it live right after the finale. And it just featured this odd moment, right, of Jeff being like, every commercial break, who wants more pizza? And when really, like, it should be supper.
Oh, pizza looks good. I'm going to have some. All right, we'll be right back after this. Like,
that was probably the most egregious thing of him being like, all right, starving people, give me some of that za.
Give me some pizza. Yeah.
Been a long final tribal council. I'm starving.
And I just never understood. Like, I get it that they were like, okay, we're going to do it live and we're going to make it like a party and we're going to make, but it wasn't like during the reunion show that was like a staple of like, hey, we're live here in Los Angeles. People are having pizza, champagne. It's a party here. Like, that was never part of it. So I think that they tried to like, hey, it's like the rap party and we're having fun. And like, and I even could understand like the optics of like, hey, we're holding champagne glasses, but the fact that the people are eating during the reunion show, to me, I will never understand why that was part of it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you and I have both conducted interviews in the past. Rob, would you really want the person you're interviewing to like simultaneously be eating pizza for the first time in 30 plus days while they're trying to answer your questions?
Hard no.
Hard pass. Yeah. And it would be one thing if it literally was live, where almost like Big Brother, where they didn't get to eat in the house and they get out like, okay, you can finally eat. All right, if you don't mind, like while you're eating though, we'd like to ask you a few questions. Like, it wasn't live. Like they easily, like they could stop down for 10 minutes and let the people have a slice of pizza.
I didn't even think about that, Rob. That's so true. I think that the idea is that they wanted to make it feel like the live reunion that they do, so they were like, yeah, everybody RHAP party thing. But as we said, when we hopped on before we started the podcast, I was eating my breakfast And I was like, I have to finish before we begin because nobody wants to hear people chewing in the background of whatever they're listening to. And that couldn't have been more true for the reunion show.
Yeah.
Who came up with this idea? Hi, Alexander Chester? I don't know. I also think there's the additional effect of like there's the jury, right? And Evie spoke about this, I believe, Rob, in your deep dive with them about how the jury like has just spent a good amount of time eating regular food and like getting back into a healthy diet. They're not necessarily keen on the pizza at the moment. It would be very much, again, if you're using this rap party analogy, if like the vast majority of the cast had eaten like half an hour ago. And they're like, all right, I guess you better eat again. Like, it didn't also help Stu's image that they were,
Right.
3/4 of the people
I
there
don't
were
fault
not.
the cast on this because that you're sitting there, you're in the cast, and it's like they bring the production is like here's pizza, like okay, I guess I'm like, and you're gonna put it in front of me, like I guess they're gonna eat it, but it didn't have to be this way. I mean, this is one of the things I really hope that they drop for Survivor 43.
Yeah, drop the pizza, keep the champagne.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Big Brother is having audiences come back because the CDC recommendation changed. I know that they've already wrapped filming on 43 and 44, but we'll just have to see what their ideas
Jeff said it's
are.
never coming back.
Oh, well, they've said things like that before and then suddenly things change. So
yeah,
I don't know.
And it's just not like that. Like, okay, doing like the reunion show, like 5 seconds after the votes are counted. It's not like that. We've gotten like such amazing moments, like, or interviews from it. Like, it's hard for me to even, other than later days. Like, I don't think there's been like an iconic thing that has come out of either of those two reunion shows other than eating the pizza.
I mean, I would also say I think we're 2 for 2 in at least like some combination of finalists just being like absolutely emotionally demoralized, right?
Yes.
In 41,
it's so sad.
both Xander and Deshaun were just like kind of contemplatively staring into their pizza. In 42, Mike seemed to be like really relatively fine with how things happened, but like I could imagine he was certainly in his feelings, especially if it is to be believed that like he essentially lost the game at that final tribal council. So yeah, it's tough. I can imagine on the one hand, Jeff really wants to talk about the live and unfiltered aspect, but I've very much been a proponent of like, you can do this, but then maybe do some sort of like Zoom produced check-in show, perhaps the week after. Sort of like, again, what they did in the early seasons of like the Back to Africa or Back from Africa special, right? Of like, here's what all the castaways were up to after the show. I'm sure they have a lot of thoughts, watching the edited product back and being able to see things that I'm sure is very different from, okay, you're in the moment. You still don't have the full glimpses to everything that happened. What are you feeling right now?
I even think we could do better than Zoom. Yeah, at this point, I think if we want to like talk to people, like have them go to like their local CBS station and stuff like that. Like I feel like there's all these like like cable news shows that are able to talk to people in like various locations. I feel like even if we didn't get people together in person, like I feel like that we would be able to do something better. But let's talk about the particular pizza at the finale here. And if you're just joining us, the pizza is made by Stu. Okay.
Do you think the stew got brought to life after Xander spoke so highly of it? Like a la a Pinocchio. Xander is the blue fairy to Stu Nocchio, and then he decided to gain a presence and got put into the kitchens to make the pizza.
I hope so. I hope so. Okay. All right. Does the pizza get through Forget You, Go Home, Goodbye?
I don't know.
I think it's better than Mike Skupin eating the rice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I don't know if it goes much further than that.
Yeah. Well, we literally wanted to go goodbye. So why don't we leave it here in the bottom tier?
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, they're saying you can't go home. You have to stay here and eat pizza.
And eat pizza on camera in front of us. Okay. All right. Then let's go ahead and look at our next moment. Mike, what do you have for us?
So we're going back more than 20 seasons from Survivor 41. You talk about whether or not it's proper to eat on camera and when being asked questions. So we're talking about one form of etiquette, but let's talk about banana etiquette.
Ooh.
Another example of food leading to drama.
Okay. What is banana etiquette? Can we define that?
So it is this idea, as James, I think, sort of half-heartedly defines it, right? Of if you have a banana, someone else must also have a banana. The buddy system must be enlisted with bananas. No one should eat a banana by themselves, or they are considered selfish.
Yes. And I think this was really just to check on James, who was overeating his share of bananas. So I think the banana etiquette was like, hey, James, you have to ask us permission by way of like, hey, I am going to eat another banana. Would anybody else like one? And sort of like trying to shame James into not eating as many bananas.
Micromanaging the bananas.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Micronesia managing.
Yes. We also got into plantain etiquette also when was it Amanda and Parvati were sort of like pissing off the heroes, but then Rupert was like, they're eating all the ripe plantains. We've got
Right.
plenty of bananas.
I'm used to yellow things, but this is ridiculous. Yeah, I think that.
Why is he used to yellow things? Is this because he peed on the fish, Mike? Is that where you're going with this?
I mean,
Is that
no,
what you're
I don't-
trying to imply? That
I
he tripped
plead
on
the
the
fifth.
pee hole? Yeah.
I peed the fifth. Yes. I mean, that moment does also lead to one of Parvati's iconic lines during her double idol play, right? Like, I don't want to watch, green bananas turn yellow, and plays the idol on
Mhm.
both on Sandra and Jerry there. But yeah, it's obviously a big storyline. James is going to bring up banana etiquette at that double tribal council, right? Where the villains are just like laughing at them while eating hot dogs about the entire idea of banana etiquette. But this is typical heroes logic, right? Of like,
Yeah.
we live in a society. There needs to be
Yeah.
rules.
I do have a clip from that tribal council. Let me see if I can bring that one up. Okay. Okay. It's being a little difficult right now. Not good etiquette from that. Okay. Maggie, how do you feel about banana etiquette?
Banana etiquette is iconic. It's literally the name of the episode. It's why Stephanie LaGrossa, well, not why, but one of the reasons given that Stephanie LaGrossa was voted out of Heroes Villains so early, who up to that point had been one of the most iconic Survivor players of the 20s. And yeah, I think that it's like if you say banana etiquette, most survivors are going to know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Should we place banana etiquette on the list?
Let's do it.
Let's do
How
it.
appealing is banana
I
etiquette?
see what you did there. Okay.
Yeah, it was a
All right.
reference to Rupert peeing on the fish.
Oh no.
What is Mike's fascination with peeing?
This is the second podcast in a week where this has been brought up, by the way. I
Mhm.
don't know. That is the answer. I'm finding this out the same as you all are.
Should we consult Jacob Jones and see what his
Mhm.
thought is?
Yes. Okay. Bring him back to Outwit a playlist. Okay.
Not until he defines what a scored is properly.
Okay.
He's
All
banned
right.
from this podcast until then.
All right, banana etiquette. Should it be into Ain't No Hershey Bar? Is it a funny moment that belongs in Ain't No Hershey Bar?
I think so, because I also love the way that James, again, sort of like sarcastically defines it of like, oh, if I grab a banana, I must ask, oh, JT, would you like a banana? Amanda, would you like a banana? I think that the way that, again, the ridiculousness of the camp rules are underlined makes it funny. And I think puts it in this tier. The question is where?
Okay. You don't think it should get into My Life is Fine? Is it beloved enough?
I don't know, Maggie, do you think that like the aforementioned stuff with the plantains, like that it's a recurring motif of banana etiquette might bump it up to My Life is Fine?
Yeah, I do. Because I think it became the name of the episode is banana etiquette. Like it is a big storyline on the season, and I feel like it's something that if people like again, if you brought up banana etiquette to a big Survivor fan, they would be like, "Oh yeah, wasn't that Heroes Villains?" So I actually probably would bump it up to My Life is Fine. I would probably put it in front of Coconut Bandits, actually.
Okay, bananas versus coconuts. I do think that the banana etiquette, I do feel like is probably more remembered than Coconut Bandits.
I would say so. Less impactful on the season than Coconut Bandits, but I would definitely say that banana etiquette is more remembered.
Which I do think there's a strong Tyson connection there between banana etiquette and Tyson also. Interestingly, that those two go back to back.
Yeah, so you think, I mean, we do this sometimes, Rob, right? Of like, from the feng shui perspective, does it fit together? And do you feel like these
Yes.
moments belong back to back?
Because I believe that Banana Etiquette is the double elimination episode, correct? Where that
Yeah.
Tyson goes out right after James does at the Banana Etiquette Tribal Council.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So-
I think Tyson actually went out first, so he didn't even get to see the banana etiquette. He had to
Okay.
hear about it from James at Ponderosa.
Yeah. Okay. So I like that they're together. I do think that's the right order. I just wonder, should Angelina's rice negotiation be ahead of both of them?
Yeah, see, I was thinking that too, Rob.
Feels
because
too
I
low.
do think that that is more iconic than banana etiquette.
What do you think, Mike?
Oh, I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to weigh up the recency bias. But then again, we also have these moments now in modern seasons with like people, Jeff offering that negotiation inspired by Angelina. Does that help it? I'm going back and forth about it. I'm having
Okay.
trouble settling on a final price.
All right. So why don't we let's put it Angelina ahead for now, and then we always can revisit later on. But this to me, I think feels good.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. All right. Mike, what do you have for us next?
All right, we're doing another rewind back to Borneo. And if we're talking about moments that were spoken about, this is a biggin. I know that Pagong was remarked for eating its own when it came to the post-merge, but before that, they ate rats.
We're gonna need some more rat tonight. All right,
it's
Pagong
on
eats
like
the
hot butter
rats.
popcorn. To
Yeah,
quote Gervase.
this was also a big deal.
I have something to say about this.
Yes.
So I obviously remember none of Borneo, but I was very big when I became a teenager. I was very big into like VH1. That was like my spot.
Sure.
And on VH1 during the time of like between like 2007-ish, they had all of these countdown shows. They loved to do these countdown shows of like the most iconic moments of the 80s or the best songs or whatever.
Yeah.
And they had top 20 reality television moments. And this was on the list. And I remember that the commentary that people talked about was that it was like, oh, this is real. Like Survivor is actually real. Like it made the audience be like, these people would not be eating rats if they were not starving. Like it was shocking that he ate the rat. It was like, oh my gosh, these people are genuinely starving that he ate the rat. His comment that it tastes a little bit like chicken was like, everywhere. And so that to me, like I remember this moment because I have it in the context of like other people talking about how iconic it was. But even in like 2008-ish, it was in the zeitgeist of like the reality TV watcher's mind.
Yeah. And it was a big like news talking point at the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, because up to that point, from a dietary perspective, right, you have Sue Hawk foraging for tapioca, but outside of that, like, people were not necessarily going for meat, which leads the Pagong to talk about, how the island is proliferated with rats, as Sue Hawk will infamously talk about in her final tribal council
Foreshadowing.
speech. Exactly. And so they are the snakes in this way, and they decide to formally eat the rat. I think it is Joel, it's Gervase, and I believe Ramona, I think, are the three that end up eating it. But it's so good. It's so wild. I mean, they literally say
I think you're
it's
about the
so
rat.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, apparently, according to them, it was pretty good. Though it really does seem like, in retrospect, especially, like, not a lot of meat on that bone. Like, you look
No.
at the bones that Joe is holding, Joel, and they're like the size of ear bones. There really isn't a lot, but beggars can't be choosers. But to me, it might be a little over the top to say, like, this is Survivor to me. Just this idea of like pushing yourself beyond what you would normally do. And I think that Jeff has now kind of reappropriated that to be like, dig in these challenges, make the moves that you need to do in order to win the game. But sometimes it's as simple as, yeah, you wouldn't eat a rat off the street. At least I hope not. That's how plagues start.
Don't do
But
that.
here you are now. You have to eat the rats at a certain point just to get a little bit of protein to push you through that next challenge.
Okay. So why don't we now take a look at where eating the rats. Pagong eats the rats. Okay. So it is not Forget You Go Home Goodbye. All right. Does it make it out of Ain't No Hershey Bar?
This
Yes.
is worth playing for. Let's not, go through the entire song and dance. It's absolutely worth playing for.
Okay. So rat or beef jerky?
The
Rat.
infamous question.
Rat.
Okay.
Definitely rat.
Rat or chocolate and peanut butter?
Because this is so tough. I could be convinced that this is honestly going to be number one on the entire countdown.
Oh,
Just because
interesting.
it is such a big moment. But like I have such difficulty between these top three, to be completely honest, as to like what goes where.
Okay. Maggie, how do you see these top three? The boutade eating, chocolate and peanut butter, and eating the rat.
So when eating the rat was one of the first like 6 things that I put on the list when I was coming up with my list. And I actually didn't have the eating the boutade on there, which obviously makes perfect sense. Everything like the precedent that it set for the show is a huge deal. But I think eating the rat, like you said, Mike, is Survivor. I don't think that the show, like, it's part of the beautiful tornado of the first season that has made the show last 44 seasons now. And I could agree with putting it number 1 also.
I would push back. I don't think it should be number 1. I feel like it certainly happened. It certainly was something that people talked about, but like it wasn't something that there was no conflict that came out of eating the rat. That nobody ever eats rats again on the show, so they never catch more rats. They
Natalie
do
does in Samoa.
Oh, I guess so. I guess so. Do they eat it also?
Yeah, she kills it and brings it, and they eat it.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. To me, I feel like that eating the beetle larvae, I feel like inspired things that were like, talked about all the time. I just feel like that, people were eating a rat. Like, okay, this is real. I think it was important for the show, but I don't know if I would put it past the it can go ahead of Jenna and Heidi, but I still feel like that Gervase trying to eat the beetle larvae and losing, I think is probably a bigger moment for the show.
I'm fine giving it the silver medal at this point, and we can revisit the conversation down the line. But yeah, I do. And I also think let's put the Gervase moments back to back here as well. Again, Gervase, king of the countdown right now.
King of the countdown, for sure.
Funny.
For sure. Okay. All right. I'm interested to know what the listeners think, where they weigh in on 1 versus 2, or if anything else will knock either of these off the list. Okay. Or out of those top spots. Mike, what is next?
While we're talking about 1 or 2, let's talk about our next entry, which involves not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 cake-covered fingers. Here is another auction moment from Survivor Micronesia. So to fill in the blanks here, Natalie Bolton ends up getting like, okay, you can invite 3 people to eat this cake with you for 30 seconds. And, this is where Natalie has her random breakout episodes. Like, I don't want y'all to go to aggro here. And so she ends up bringing one of the people, including Suri, to gorge on this cake for a full minute. And then after they come back and everyone's giggling, Eric Reichenbach, so hungry, so misguided, tells Suri that he would like to lick cake off of her fingers. And in a moment that could only have a Brazzers caption in the lower third and feel appropriate, it ends up happening.
My favorite part of this is I believe that James from the bench is, that boy's not right.
Yeah. He knew all along. Then we'll talk about James is not necessarily out of the woods in terms of weird moments. We still have one more to talk about with him.
Yeah. The boy's not right.
It's freaky. It's freaky.
Yes. But now doesn't this also happen with Cochran and the peanut butter and Sherry also in the Survivor Caramoan auction?
That might be, though. You gotta imagine this is like mocking that, right? Because again, talk about
and
reinventing.
Eric is there, yeah.
Talk about reinventing the game, and that's Eric went from fan to favorite. In that moment, he knows he's matured, right? He's like, huh, look at that young ruffian. I used to be like him. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is wild. Maggie, your thoughts?
I mean, it's so good. Like, it was one of my 6 moments that I like. It's just so absurd. It makes no sense. It's gross. It's like so many things. You have Cerie's iconic laugh going on as he's doing it. Like Cerie can't believe it, but she's like, I mean, yeah, sure.
Now is she laughing because it's unbelievable, or is she laughing because it tickles? Right?
I
Is this
think
like
both.
is it like having like what those fish at spas like eat the dead skin off your feet where it like tickles just a little bit?
I think it's just like crazy. Like it's just totally an out there
The
moment,
boy's not right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's something that like I remember. It sticks out in my head because when it happened, I was like, huh? What's going on here? Oh man, if only you had had the
What's
podcast then,
going
Rob.
on? Yeah.
Yeah. It would have been only would have been better if Eric pulls a Denise and says like, "All right, I'm going to eat fingers." Ah! And then just starts
Yeah. So, did he like volunteer that also? I feel like it was
Yes.
like
Yeah. Oh no, it's as good of a strategist as Cerie is and thinking outside the box, she would not handily, quite literally, say like, "All right, who wants to lick dirty chocolate cake off my festooned hands?"
I feel like, did he pay money also? Like, I feel like that he like volunteered, like, I'll pay $20 to lick somebody's fingers.
Again, trendsetter. If you're talking about influencers going on to Survivor and Jenna and Heidi, I think Eric perhaps had a lot of people feel seen in that moment.
Okay. All right. So why don't we then go ahead and see where to place this one?
Can we call this moment? Can we call
vaguely-
this? Go ahead, Maggie.
Go ahead, Mike. No,
I was
go
gonna
ahead.
say we should call this moment "Only Hands."
Only hands.
Yeah, because it is like vaguely sexual. Also, there's like weird sexual undertones, and yet it's just like gross. Like everybody's dirty. Like the whole thing is just completely bizarre.
I mean, it does bring up a good point, though. If you were in Eric's shoes here in his infamous green trunks, and you saw someone with cake-covered hands, and you're on Survivor, like, I'd do it. Hell, I'd have seconds. To quote Harry
I
Carey.
don't think I would. I don't think I would.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going through my evolution of strategy notes.
Control F cake, nasty hands.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. All right. So yeah, here we go. It is gonna be it was Eric's birthday also, I think.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Well,
Mhm.
my birthday's coming up in a couple days, and I know what
Yes.
I want.
Yeah, so it was Eric paid $40 to lick Cerie's fingers there. Okay.
Wow.
And James, in addition to that boy has problems, also said that's sad.
Wow. I mean, let's call Cerie the Cakenut Bandit because I feel like she got away here with getting $40
I don't think
for
she
free.
got the $40. I think he might have paid that to Jeff.
But Jeff has no horse in this race. It shouldn't have gone to Jeff.
Well, I don't know. Okay.
I feel like
Yeah.
this is Eric's version of getting naked for chocolate and peanut butter.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see where we place this on the list. All right. Here we go. All right. Here's the fingers. Is this forget you go home goodbye?
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay.
No way.
All right. So I feel like the ain't no Hershey bar seems appropriate.
You think?
I don't know. I could.
You
I
think it's
could be-
higher?
I could be bargained into my life is fine.
Okay.
I think so.
Talk us through it.
I think it's. Go ahead, Mike.
I mean, listen, it is. I think it's fairly iconic. I think it's representative of Eric Reichenbach as a character, which is just like a little off, a little misguided, a little strange. And it definitely. I mean, I guess the other thing is I do wonder that like if this was an auction moment, would it be higher? Does it work better as a food moment or an auction moment? I'm not entirely sure, but maybe that's a talk for another day.
Yeah. I'm
Mhm.
bidding hard on this during the auction.
The Survivor auction.
Yes.
I think that it works. I think that it's good and my life is fine because I think it's so memorable. I think people will be like, do you remember when that guy, Eric, who gave away the immunity necklace, do you remember when he licked Cerie's fingers? And I feel like everybody would be like, yes,
Mhm.
because who does that? So I would actually put it probably before Coconut Bandits and like I think it lives right around banana etiquette.
I think there's an entire James Clement subsection of this countdown that is with banana etiquette. And yeah, well, we'll talk about, and there's Denise, and we'll talk about
Is
later.
it above banana etiquette here?
I might put it below banana etiquette.
Yeah.
Okay, but I
I would
can't. I
too.
don't think it should break up Tyson and the banana etiquette and the coconut bandits.
Then maybe I would put it after.
I think we like both moments like are tied to James. I think that both moments are involving like island fruit.
Yeah. I
like that symmetry too much.
Now, what's interesting is if we put this after Angelina, I think it makes sense because I'm looking back on my historian's note for Micronesia, and there was some negotiation. Sari initially put out an opening bid of $20 a finger, and Eric countered by saying 40 for the whole hand. I cannot believe I'm saying this on a podcast.
Oh my God.
Ayo.
Okay. I think that's where it belongs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's good.
All right. Mike. All right. I count 6 more to go.
Yeah, we're going from salacious to scandalous here. Survivor Cagayan is an incredible season, and we knew we were off to the races when it came to the plight of the Brains tribe. In particular, one chaotic event that happens in the 2-episode premiere of Survivor Cagayan. Of course, we would not be talking about this list if we would not be talking about Jatia dumping out all of Mike Skupin's beloved uncooked rice into the fire when she thought she was going home.
Okay. All right. It's a great moment, Maggie.
It's so good. It's so good. This is, again, like, this is so Survivor. This is everything that you want on this, what this tier list represents. It's drama-filled. It's ridiculous behavior. It causes so much strife and gameplay, like within the gameplay of the camp. It revolves around very important food. Like, this is not reward food that they're arguing over. This is the stash of rice that they have for the 39 days out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. It kicks off the Brains tribe being an absolute disaster, the complete underdogs for the season. I think that this is top tier.
Okay. Mike, your thoughts?
It's incredible. What makes it even more incredible is she does this and she stays.
Yeah.
You think, like, I honestly think it's made better by that. If she had dumped out the rice and gone out, then we're just like, okay, she did what Brandon Hance threatened to do, like really, salting the earth on the way out. But the fact that she did this, that she dumped out, to Maggie's point, like the nutrient sustenance that the tribe needs to try to get by from day to day and still ends up staying in the game is goddamn ridiculous. And to me, was this moment that I like instantly fell in love with Survivor Cagayan that night. Like I really liked the first half of that episode, but really that second half between Tony finding the idol, between, everything that happened at the Brains camp, and then ultimately Garrett Adelstein getting booted after being in such a position of power with an idol in his pocket over the woman who dumped rice into the fire is unbelievable. It is so, so good.
Yeah, it is certainly an all-time moment. I guess I never had thought about it as a food moment before.
Really?
But, yeah, I guess I never, it's just like kind of like the fish. It's similar, I think, to Sandra throwing out the fish. Here's Jatia. They're gonna throw out the rice, and because I guess it's because people weren't eating it at the time, I didn't think of it as like a moment involving food, but I think it certainly fits our criteria.
Right. It turns from a food to a weapon, essentially.
Also, to me, it's like everybody watching the season was like, yeah, if somebody on my tribe threw a temper tantrum and threw the rice in the fire, it does not matter. They're getting voted out. And I really do think that it made the intrigue for the Brains tribe go up 1,000,000% when you're like, oh my God, these people are either thinking so stupidly or they're thinking so intelligently, like, and only time will tell, that they're willing to keep this person along who is actively sabotaging the camp for the sake of the game at large. Yeah, I think like me as somebody who, when I watch Survivor, I'm like, I could never do it for the simple fact of my hanger. And I'm like, I would never forgive her in the game.
Yeah.
If she dumped the rice in the fire, I would never forgive her.
To use more of a real life example, if you had a carpool to the office and you discovered that one person one day siphoned all the gas out of the tank of the car and they said, okay, that's not good, but this person's really been bugging us, so I think they're not going to be in the carpool over the gas siphoner. That is essentially what this was. That's how ridiculous this is.
Okay, let's see if we can place Jatia dumping out the rice. Okay, all right. Well, are we going all the way to worth playing for?
I think we
think
have
so.
to. Yeah, I think for the second straight countdown, Rob, Jatia, despite only being in 4 episodes in Survivor Cagayan, ends up at the top tier.
Okay, all right. So, is this better than beef jerky?
I think so.
I don't know. It's tough.
I don't know if it's more iconic than the beef jerky.
The beef
This was a
jerky is
huge
so
moment.
big.
This
Yeah.
is the thing, though. I'm going to push back on you, both of you here, and say, age-wise, Cagayan is what got all these new fans into the show.
Sure.
So say you got into the show because you watched newer seasons like Survivor Cagayan, and then you went back and watched it all. I think Jatia throwing the rice in the fire is more iconic than the beef jerky for newer fans.
That is an
Okay.
interesting point. It does also happen in episode 2, which also happened with Kellen the beef jerky. It's tough. I mean, there is like an old school coalition happening with the first 4. Do we want to throw some new school into it or keep it separated?
I'm
up to you guys.
open-minded. I'm open-minded.
I mean, I'm personally for keeping it behind Kel, so I guess Rob, the vote is on you here. You're the swing.
Okay. All right. Well, let's shake it up, okay? Now how high do you want to go, Maggie?
I don't know. You guys pushing back saying it shouldn't be ahead of Kel makes me back off my earlier stance. But like, I think that the thing about Cagayan is that it has that bump of like, Cagayan is one of the most iconic Survivor seasons ever. So already, like, if the first 2 moments are the first season, which is the most iconic season, it set the precedent for the rest of the series. Like, Cagayan is to new players what Borneo, or to new watchers, I think, what Borneo is. So I would put it ahead of chocolate and peanut butter, but I don't want to get crazy here. If all we can do is in front of Kel, that's where I will argue that it should stay.
All right. We got to make a call here. Let's split the difference here and put it ahead of Kel, who may or may not have even had the beef jerky. Okay? It might have been a fictional food moment. This was definitively a food moment with Jatia. Okay?
Yeah.
Let's
I'm
leave
fine
it
with this
there.
for now. Yeah,
Okay?
exactly. I'm sure Kel's
We
happy.
can revisit.
We can revisit. All right.
Mhm.
Mike, what do you have for us next?
All right. So, Rob, you have previously spoken in a podcast about, top Survivor drunk moments. This bleeds a little bit into that, sloppily, fittingly. So, we are talking about Survivor Guatemala, where Judd Sargent wins one of the rewards that they've only done a couple of times, surprisingly, on Survivor, where he gets to determine, like, the meal that each person has at the reward. He wins the challenge and as a result gets surf and turf, as well as basically all the beers that he can drink, and goes a little over the line in true Judd fashion and ends up having a good old time. Him and Bobby John, right, are trying to like haul a big old stump because they're just both absolutely wasted. But that night, as is recounted the next day, Judd rolls over to the side of the shelter and just pukes along the side of it, which does not cause a lot of happiness amongst the Jacum tribe.
Okay. So Judd gorges and gets blackout drunk is officially what we're calling the moment. Maggie.
Judd is disgusting. That he did that he puked in the shelter and then tried to act like he didn't know what was going on and people were like being so rude for even bringing it up to him. Mind you, this is after he's stolen extra beers that they won in a reward because he seems to think, oh, well, I'm winning all the rewards for everybody. Like Judd is a great character.
Yes.
And, Rob, you didn't get to talk about Guatemala on the countdown, which I did think was a little disappointing because I loved the Guatemala.
No, I didn't talk about Cook Islands. I remember because I was actually there for the Guatemala podcast. That we did.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, man. Sorry, I'm wrong.
Man.
Maybe I need to.
I
need to go
come
back.
On, damn Maggie, go listen to your damn podcast, man.
I know. Yeah. I need to go back and listen because Judd is a really fantastic Survivor character. But to me, to a lot of people, Stephanie is the villain of the season. Judd is the villain of that season because Judd sucks. He sucks so hard. And the fact that he got blackout drunk at the event and puked, and oh my God, that puke smelled disgusting the next day.
I can assure you. So in Survivor the Amazon, that Butch had gotten sick in the shelter, and it was disastrous the following day. Yes.
That is horrifying.
Yes.
That is so gross. Oh.
Yeah. But it's like typical Judd. Again, it's a representation of his game, right? Of like a little boorish, very messy, infringing upon the comfort of everyone else on the tribe. But there was nothing they could do about it in that moment, right? Like you'd have Judd like, yeah, I'm sorry, man. I puked in the damn shelter. But like, damn, man. Also, during the reward, like it wasn't just beers. I remember at one point he was like ordering mixed drinks, like a vodka and cranberry. Like this dude got positively sauced out.
I don't know why, and I thought they don't really do this anymore, but why, hard liquor is given out on Survivor, but, there was open bar. Yeah.
I don't think any liquor should be given out on Survivor. These people are dying of thirst. The last thing that they need is to become incredibly dehydrated. Like, can you imagine how bad that hangover probably was for him the next day?
I can.
I mean, we saw it. There was literally a shot of the waste, I should say, of that next morning. Like, which was, for me, like, look, listen, Survivor editors, I love when you show us a lot of stuff that happens. Maybe that's something that could make the cutting room floor, or the cutting room shelter, as it were.
Okay. All right. So let's see if we could place all of this shenanigans with Judd. All right. Is it in Forget You Go Home Goodbye?
I would possibly put it in the back end of Ain't No Hershey Bar. Because to me, like, I think if I'm thinking of Judd moments, this represents him, but it's not the thing that I'm necessarily thinking of.
And I feel like that there's some synergy here with Taco Overload.
Exactly. This is the overindulgence section of the list. Because like even right after this happens, Judd then does the idol clue, right, of like, oh, it's definitely not on the ground, and that to me is more of an iconic Judd moment than what he does here with the overindulging and puking in the shelter.
Okay.
Judd is so bad. Oh my gosh! If I was out there with Judd, oh my gosh! If I was out there with Judd, I wouldn't have been able to handle it. I would have been like, you gotta go away. You gotta get away from me, sir.
Yes. Okay. Was it Maggie in the season that Judd was feuding with?
Yeah, there was a Margaret that he was indeed.
Maybe it's something
about
the name. Yeah.
Just don't tell him he has ADD.
Well, I wouldn't say that to him. I mean, that's an absurd thing to say to anybody. But like, I think maybe it's the fact that she was a smart woman who was standing up for herself and not letting him bully the rest of the camp. I think maybe that had something to do with it. But
okay. All right. A couple more moments to put it on our list. All right. What do we got, Mike?
So we've talked about Sandra. We've talked about sugar. How about Sandra eating some sugar? Here is Survivor Game Changers, the infamous storyline where Sandra eats all of the remaining sugar from their coffee reward and JT gets blamed.
Yeah, so this was kind of like a wild plan. Amazing that it works, right? Because that they had gotten like some sort of like coffee reward, and because Michaela liked a lot of sugar in her coffee, right? And then
Mhm.
JT would get pissed because it was like he wanted to conserve the resources. Sandra came up with, hey, I'll eat all the sugar, and this will make JT mad at Michaela. And then we'll tell JT we're voting out Michaela, and then we'll vote out JT.
Yeah, I mean, this to me is, I know I keep saying like emblematic, but like the moment serving as a larger representation. But to me, this is like what Sandra did in Survivor Game Changers, right? Which was after 2 seasons of much more under the radar, as long as it's not me, perhaps less regarded wins. She comes in here and arguably plays her like highest Q rating in terms of fan reception to what she does, where she's making big swings, she's taking out Tony, she's dictating votes, and this is a great representation of that she does this entire sugar heist essentially,
Yeah.
and does it while hamming it up to the cameras, right? That infamous look that she gives while they're arguing in the background to pin everything between Michaela and JT, so then she can enact this plan to blindside him with an idol in his pocket.
Maggie, is this as close as we ever get on Survivor to Muffin Gate?
Yeah, probably. But the thing is, Muffin Gate had no strategic element to it. It was just because, Turner doesn't like Jasmine. This is like strategy mixed in with food drama, mixed in with everything. Like it's beautiful.
Do you think
Absolutely beautiful.
should JT have hidden underneath the coffee cart to wait to see if someone would eat the sugar?
Yeah, but that's Sandra's MO though. Sandra's sneaky like that. She likes to, eavesdrop and stuff. So I don't know if it would have worked. Maybe he would have taken her hiding place.
Yeah. It culminates then Michaela is drinking the coffee while JT is getting voted out. And so, Michaela never got mad at Sandra for like, you framed me?
No, because I think it was
for her.
It was the greater good, right? It was, and yes, even though the sugar was done, that's the other thing as well, is that it's a little coconut bandity as well, right? That Sandra also gets the additional bump from the sugar high, which honestly, maybe the chicken came before the egg of she ate the sugar and was so buzzed from it, her mind was racing a mile a minute of like, okay, how can I pin this on Michaela in order to get JT and her to feud? But I love that it had strategic ramifications. I feel like that has the makings of a really good food moment.
Okay. All right, let's see, where do we place it on the list? Okay, certainly not Forget You, Go Home, Goodbye. All right, are we going, can we skip Ain't No Hershey Bar? Can we go to My Life Is Fun?
Yeah, let me put in an opening bid here. I think if we're going for the feng shui, let's put it between Randy and the cookies and Sandra and the fish. I think
well,
that's
that is the link here between sugar and the other Sandra moment is a stop here.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think it's a fun word ladder, right? Of like sugar and the cookies, Sandra with the sugar, Sandra with the fish.
Yeah. Okay.
I love it.
I think that's perfect. I love when we find the perfect spots for these things on the list. All right. Let's keep going. We have 3 more left. Okay. Let's go ahead here and check out another moment. Mike, what do you have for us?
Back to the Micronesia finger licking good auction. And that's how James would typify this dish that he got. He gets one of the booby prizes, at least what production initially thinks, with a big old bowl of bat soup. But James takes a look at that lemon tree and makes lemonade AF, as he has a particularly good time just digging into that whole ass bat while on the bench in Micronesia.
Yeah, I think he had the bat soup already at the merge, right, in Survivor China. Isn't he already was served it once before, correct?
I think it might have actually been in Micronesia that he ended up eating the bat.
Yeah,
maybe.
okay. He already had it, like, I guess at the merge feast or whatever. And he doesn't even have to be like, get in my face. He doesn't need to psych himself up. He's just gonna eat it. Bat soup.
Yeah. And I do think that's it's like a really lovely Survivor moment that like this producer's like, look at this gross food. And he was like, well, this is a local delicacy. And actually there's a reason for it. It's pretty good. Which I do think is lovely in terms of like melding cultures and stuff. And also it's just like, I think the show portrays it more like this crazy James guy. He likes the bat soup. Whoa. You know?
No, Wu was on another season.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah, sorry.
He has
about
his
that.
own auction moments.
Mhm.
Bat
Give me a fat-
soup, so succulent,
Give me a fat
delicious.
dip of that bat.
I love Woo.
Yeah. Finger licking. Yeah. Okay. Where do we want to put bat soup on the list? Okay.
It is very James to me. Again, this is a guy where you can't judge a book by his cover. That yes, he is a bit soft spoken initially in China, and he's the grave digger that everyone wants to stay away from, but like has such of a weird, goofy side to him that it works perfectly here. Where you mentioned it, Rob, at the merge feast, there's this big bowl of bat soup that nobody is eating except for James. He loves it. He compares it to like eating a juicy rabbit, and I love the fact that it gets brought out again for him. And everyone else would be like, oh no, I got the donkey and, let's make a deal. And James is like, hell no, I've got fields to plow. That donkey's going to do that for me.
All right. So probably not forget you go home goodbye, right?
No.
Okay.
No, I would probably put it in Ain't No Hershey Bar because I think it's to that point, that smaller, funnier moment.
Okay. Is it at the back end of Ain't No Hershey Bar where it could potentially bookend Ain't No Hershey Bar with James up against Denise in the delicacy challenge, ultimately closing it out with James getting a Micronesian delicacy in the auction?
Yeah, I like that because the Judd thing sucks, but it has like game ramifications. Like it's Judd being boorish and like everybody, being like, you suck. That's terrible to do to us. Versus the bat suit, like it's just James being James, doing his own thing, liking what he likes,
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah,
Should we higher?
listen, if we can go, I would personally put it higher, but if it's meant to be here to have Clement bookmarks, I'm fine with it.
How high would you put it?
I would probably put it around the like taco overload chicken wings spot. Because again, I think to me, and I guess it's also the argument I made with Judd, right? That like there are so many famous James moments. I don't know if the bat suit makes one of them. So I could be persuaded to put it in the back here.
Yeah, to me, it's just it's interesting, but I feel like it's not much of a moment. It's like, oh, James, you lose, you get bat soup. You're like, oh, actually, I like bat soup. Like I think it's a James character moment, but I feel like it's the moment is not a meal.
Agreed.
It's a snack. Yeah,
I would say, is bat soup a meal, Rob? What would Jerry Seinfeld say?
I think at Mendy's they have the best bat soup in the city. Okay, all right. But is it a meal? We don't know. Okay, all right. Then, Mike, what else do we have to talk about?
So there's actually only one left. I put a picture of stew on there as like my own version of bat soup, just to fool with you.
Okay.
Because I also didn't know which version of stew we'd be talking about. So we have one food moment left, but it's a big one. It's a trip to Applebee's from Survivor Island of the Idols.
Wow.
Oh my God! Applebee's!
Yes. The Survivor 39 cast reacts to the Applebee's reward. Of course, we know Karishma was the #1 Applebee's fan.
I love Applebee's.
Yeah.
Yep.
Applebee's, baby.
And it's not even about like the gummy shark bowl and the actual food that they have. It is much more so them essentially having the 2019 equivalent of the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show moment when it comes to the Apple Beatles.
Yeah, they were psyched. They were very excited. Yes.
About Applebee's.
Tell us.
Gladly, always.
One time, my older brother called Applebee's the definition of mediocre Midwestern cuisine. And I don't disagree. I think at the time, I thought he was being snobbish, but I do think that like Applebee's, like I had a friend who worked at Applebee's who said like they heated up the steaks in the microwave and like threw them on the grill, which is hearsay. I don't want to get sued by Applebee's, but like that is like, I think Applebee's is like fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
But you do have to remember that for the survivors, this is like I can understand that reaction for the survivors to get the chance to go to Applebee's.
Yeah, I mean, if they had like to be able to
Like,
order off of the Survivor Seamless menu, then yeah, they might be
we've
like,
talked about like
Applebee's.
Maggie. These people are eating rats. These people are eating bat soup. Okay, so many different things that they are eating. They're sucking on chicken bones. And grateful. Applebee's? Are you kidding me?
I just think it's hilarious that like Applebee's, which is like a C-level chain restaurant, they're
Mhm.
like, oh my God.
Applebee's
And
slander.
that's why it's iconic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think
What
is
do
it
you like
made
from Applebee's?
Applebee's, not Apple C's, Maggie.
is it made even more iconic by the legacy of Applebee's that infamously in the Mergatory episode from Survivor 42, right? Jeff's like, all right, we've made a few changes. I know you didn't like the hourglass thing. We are hearing you loud and clear. First thing on our list, they're getting Applebee's.
So I feel like it was already iconic before that. I think my question is, would you rather Applebee's or Outback?
Oh, Outback, 100%. I mean, I
Well,
know.
Mike. I know Mike Bloom
Yeah, I was gonna say,
worked there. Yeah.
I know that
would-
says something though. I know how the sausage gets made, and I would still eat it at an Outback Steakhouse
Yeah.
over Applebee's.
I would rather eat at Applebee's because I don't eat red meat. So Applebee's, I think, has more options. Also, growing up, that Applebee's lava cake,
Yeah.
so good. Oh
Very
my gosh,
good.
that's the
Very
best
good.
thing on the menu.
But
the
Maggie,
Applebee's
what
lava
about the
cake.
chocolate thunder from Down Under served at Outback Steakhouse?
I never had that. Applebee's was like, okay, so I did theater obviously all through school and high school, and Applebee's was like the spot you went after the show.
Sure.
Like the whole cast is like, let's go. It's like
Wait,
Applebee's, you know?
should they do an Applebee's sponsored reunion? If we're talking about the wrap
Yes.
party, get rid of the pizza and the champagne, bring in Applebee's.
Yes.
Mhm.
I would go to Applebee's in college. That was where we would go after opening nights. That was like the spot in Muncie, Indiana. We'd go to Applebee's and I would go and I would get a Long Island iced tea.
Oh,
And that would be my drink of choice.
all right. Don't ask me the recipe. Okay. That's a hell of a drink, Maggie. Forget the shark
I
bowl.
know.
I was gonna say, like, do you have a tough show? Like, you're downing a Long Island iced tea?
At like 21 years old, I was like, this will be good for me. Like,
Mhm.
everybody who's 21, don't order a Long Island iced tea from Applebee's. Okay.
That's like a Judd
Mhm.
Sargent level drink. You're really
I
hitting it
know.
hard.
I
Yeah.
know.
Let me get a damn
Wild.
Long Island iced tea, man.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But where do we rank Applebee's reward here on our list? Okay. I think this is a fun moment.
I
Yeah.
do. But I personally kind of think My Life is Fine is an interesting spot for it. Now, again, it might be because it's become mimetic within the fandom, right? That like everyone was really laughing about the fact about the Applebee's and the fact that it has been brought back now again in Survivor 42. But I think it transcends perhaps some of these more mid chronology moments, right? From like your China's, your Exile Islands, your Vanuatu's, your Micronesias. It benefits from being modern and that like there's Twitter around now to really make fun of. Really? They're freaking out over Applebee's?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the survivors go to Applebee's on Survivor night. I feel like that was a thing that happened during season 42 when Applebee's brought it back. Jamal was going to Applebee's. That Nasir went to Applebee's for the Survivor night. So it's a thing now.
Yeah, Rob, we honestly might have to go back and revisit because Applebee's was also part of that brand Outwit Outplay list that we did. Like
Yeah.
Applebee's might have to be higher. It has maybe stood the test of time as one of the best sponsors to be on the show.
Yeah. So, all right, Maggie, though, you called it Apple C's. Should it be lower? Is it
I
too
think
high?
Maybe, yeah. I mean,
Might
I
be
think
too
it
high.
goes ahead of the chicken bones in Vanuatu.
Mm-hmm. Now you can get
But-
boneless wings at Applebee's. There'd be no
But
evidence.
you know, I have to say, I was out on season 39. I, stopped watching halfway through. For
Mhm.
reasons
Over
that we
the
don't need to mention.
Applebee's.
A lack
Yeah.
of Applebee's, yes.
Yeah,
I
too
was
much
offended by the
Applebee's.
Applebee's.
Yeah.
I had to stop watching that season. So I don't feel like any sort of connection to this.
Mhm.
So that's, part of it for me that I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever about
Okay.
it. So I don't, it can be in my life is fine. Like, I think I just personally have like a different view of it.
Yeah. Are you saying that that its association with season 39 is bringing it down?
Yeah. Because like, I don't want to ever, yeah, that's for me. But like, that is such a personal thing. Again, like, I feel like
Yes.
95% of people who listen to this podcast won't feel that
Can
way.
separate it. Yeah.
So
Right.
I feel like Mike has his finger on the pulse more of the current Survivor fandom and
Yeah,
how
All
they
right.
feel. So
those
I
ki-
maybe
yeah,
think My
I-
Life is Fine is the right spot for it.
I do have cake-covered fingers on the entirety of the fandom.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, Mike, where do you feel like it should go?
I personally think the back of My Life is Fine could possibly work. I could also be, talked down into like the top of a No Hershey bar. I feel like it's in either one of those places.
I do feel like it has stood the test of time. I think more so than any of the moments that we're talking about in Ain't No Hershey Bar in terms of being something that was memorable. I still think that, it's a good bit anytime anybody talks about Applebee's association with Survivor. In addition to how nuts everybody went, we talked a lot about Karishma.
I love Applebee's.
And how it was, why did Krishma love Applebee's? They
It's
brought
her
it back.
favorite indoor sit-down restaurant.
Yes, favorite indoor sit-down restaurant. So, okay. Well, let's take a look at our list here and see if we want to make any adjustments. All right. Forget You Go Home Goodbye was the Survivor reunion pizza, and then also the uncooked rice that Mike Skupin would like to eat.
Yeah,
Good.
I like that.
Strongly.
Because I think as well, like having uncooked rice at the bottom feels very representative of the bottom tier, right? Like it's not very tasty, not very appetizing, and literally undigestible.
All right. Then we have an Ain't No Hershey bar. Okay. Right now there are 6 things there. This tier starts with Denise trying to eat the balut. Then we have the Casa del Charmin up all night drinking the red wine. We have the Survivor Vanuatu women give the men the chicken bones after they get done eating them. Taco overload, Judd's open bar overload, and bat soup.
This is my favorite tier.
I think
I
it
love
looks
it so
good.
much.
Yeah, this is where Maggie
Bookended
lives
by
right now.
James Clement moments at the top and at the bottom.
Love it.
Okay. All right. Our largest tier is My Life is Fine. It starts off with Randy and the cookie from Survivor Gabon's auction to Sandra eating the sugar. Then Sandra and the fish that got thrown away.
Mm-hmm.
Why she tripped, we'll never know. Then Angelina's rice negotiations. Eric pays $40 to lick all of Cerie's fingers. Banana etiquette, coconut bandits, and Applebee's.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, the only question is there any that we feel like we want to move up to worth playing for? Or do we feel like
No.
it's rarefied air with these 5?
Yeah, I don't think so. I feel like there is a hard stop after Angelina, between Angelina and Eric. Like after Eric licking Cerie's fingers, it becomes a little sillier, and like the first 4 are more game. But like if we only have 4 tiers, like that's just, what it's going to be. If there was 5 tiers,
I could see a delineation here. Okay.
But I'm good with that.
Yeah, sort of
All
like
right.
a B minus tier.
Not an Apple B minus. Okay. Then in worth playing for, our top 5. Okay. We have number 5, Kel and the beef jerky. Number 4, Jatia dumps out the rice. Number 3, Jenna and Heidi and the chocolate and the peanut butter. Then we have in number 2, Pagong eats the rat. Number 1, the boutade eating for Gervase and Stacey Stillman, and then also the reprise of the gross food challenge from Survivor 27.
I don't know. I still kind of want Pagong eating the rats to be first. It just feels odd to me to not have it first, but I think the points you brought up before, Rob, were salient. It just doesn't necessarily look like right to me in
Well,
this moment.
okay, Maggie, what do you think? I mean, I can be overruled.
I think the rat should be first.
All right. Let it be in the end as it was in the beginning that the Pagong who ate the rats should go ahead of Gervase, who scurried around hitting his face.
I think
Okay.
that's the thing with the rats is that it showed Survivor was real. And
Mhm.
I think that that's, for all intents and purposes, like that is what the most iconic Survivor food moment is.
I mean, listen,
Okay.
the general
like that.
winner of this list is Gervase Peterson.
Yes.
Has
Mhm.
two of the best moments, and one in My Life is Fine as well. This is the best performance he'll ever have when it comes to Survivor in general. Definitely, at least when it comes to the realm of food.
Okay. And there you have it. There's our list. A late
Woo!
upset. This eating the rat, the number one iconic Survivor food moment of all time. Okay, let me just give the a full screen shot of the list. If anybody wants to screenshot it for posterity, here you go. Here is the all-time list. Boom.
Yay.
So good, you want to eat it.
So good, it'll make you want to smack your mama. Okay.
Gosh.
All right. Shout out to T-Bird for that one. All right. Maggie, now that we've accomplished the list, what's coming up for you?
Yeah, so I'll be on the podcast tonight recapping the veto episode.
I think this is that you will have already been on the podcast by the time this comes out.
I check it out. Me on the veto episode of
It was
Big Brother.
incredible. Maggie was hilarious on
Oh my
Wednesday
God,
night's
so
Big
good.
Brother recap. Yes.
Thank you so much. I know it was really, when I did that thing, it was just so great.
I can't believe that made air, to be completely honest. I thought that would
I
have
know.
gotten cut.
I got the okay from the boss man, so he said it was all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will be there. I am, deep into Big Brother 24 right now. That's what season we're on. And I've been doing live feed updates, and I was on the roundtable last week, so check me out there. This is my first, podcast about a different show in a minute. So thank you guys so much for having me on. Thank you, Mike, for agreeing with my, list that I sent you and for coordinating.
Such a good list. And look, I can understand if certain moments didn't make it for people. As we always say with these things, like, we couldn't have encompassed them all, or this would have gone on for 4 hours instead of 3. We'll find other outlets to hopefully talk about other things. But this was a very fun podcast from our end, and I hope that expands outwards to the general listenership as well.
Yeah. My only question for you, Maggie, is that after this podcast, will you be heading out for a Long Island iced tea?
I'm heading to lunch. Honestly, I probably could have a Long Island iced tea because I'm not working today, but I'm not sure that I want one in the middle of the day.
Yeah, it might
Maybe
be,
that
Wednesday night Big Brother recap was wild in hindsight. Yes.
Look, I don't know. Mike and Rob, check your phones. Maybe in the group chat, you'll get a selfie of me with a Long Island iced tea for you to tweet later. I don't know.
Okay. The wildest Big Brother recap of the season was Wednesday night. Okay. All right. And then, I know Mike Bloom is, that sometimes I think about myself and I'm like, boy, you know what? That I'm just, what am I doing wrong? That Mike Bloom, he's a dad. Somehow he has time to watch and podcast 9 million shows. Like, how is he doing it?
I say the same thing about you, though. That's the other thing, is that
you're on top of the live feeds. You're podcasting like all these other shows.
I mean, when it comes to the live feeds, let me, show immense kudos to people like Maggie and all the other people that are on with, of course, Taryn every week for keeping me abreast with that stuff, because I am doing, of course, exit press for Big Brother 24. Of course, as we shift into the jury phase, those are still happening, though the questionnaire format is going to be a bit different, but excited to keep doing that, as well as coverage of the Challenge USA for Parade.com. Of course, Survivor South Africa, believe it or not, is in its penultimate week. Episodes.
I don't have time to watch it, let alone podcast it.
Let alone talk about it for 4 hours with Shannon Gus. So it is all fantastic discussion. Episodes 17 through 20 happening this week.
Honestly,
Yeah.
So depressing that they took it off Paramount Plus. Like, I am so mad. My roommate and I got through the first season and we were in. We were like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
this
well of
is
course.
fantastic.
Listen, to not say anything about Survivor South Africa Philippines, like that is a quintessential Maggie Morgan chaos-filled season.
Yeah. Yeah. Although in
So
fairness,
good.
I think if I wasn't doing RHAP, I think I could be fitting in Survivor South Africa. So I don't know. Is that worth the trade-off?
I mean, listen, I don't want to lay too much at the feet of Kiwi Weens, but it is a
Mhm.
very good season
Yeah.
so far, and it's coming to a close.
I
so
watched Transformers movies on 4X this week. I don't know if that was the best use of my time.
I mean, listen, you know, 6 eggs in one hand, half a dozen balut in the other when it comes to stuff that you get to cover here on the
Mhm.
podcast. But
Yeah.
Shannon and I are doing recaps of that, plus some exit press for that type of stuff. Probably going to be doing another B&B at some point with Liana for BB24 as the month comes to a close. But over on post-show recaps, podcast overload is happening. So I'm really steeped into fantasy coverage right now. I'm going to be doing coverage of House of the Dragon, going to be doing a recap with Grace Leader on Sunday nights right after the episode airs, starting this Sunday. Very excited to get back into the world of Westeros. Also covering the Lord of the Rings of Power, going to Middle Earth on September 2nd. Josh and I just finished the Lost episode countdown with, believe it or not, another 4-hour podcast. Now I'm starting to believe more and more of what you were telling me at the beginning of all this. The final thing that I will float out there, spill a bit of the beans or the rice, as it were, is, you know, in an ideal world, Rob, maybe we do one more of these, but who knows when the Survivor 43 cast might end up happening. You know, we are a little over. Yeah, we're a little over a month away from the premiere of Survivor 43, as well as The Amazing Race 34. Very odd that those numbers are inversed, but it's all
We're
happening
a month away.
Yes, September 21st is when both of those end up premiering. And so you never know when that cast is going to drop. Rob, you and I are going to happily dig into this cast like it's a nice buffet of chicken wings before we give the bones on to those poor men over at the Alinta tribe.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, Mike, really appreciate you making time for another Outwit, Outplay, OutLIST with everything that you have going on. Thank you all so much for joining us, and check out everything else we're doing. For some reason, if you're not yet subscribed to Rob's podcast, go on over to robswebsite.com/subscribe. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.